All right, folks. I'm just doing some customer service hours right now. See if I got any customers who require my services. Oh, look, we got Mage. Mage, why didn't you record your podcast, your space with Falstaff yesterday? I would have listened to it. You should have recorded it. You should have recorded your space. What did you guys talk about?
Oh, we talked about a lot of stuff. We were talking about Dante and John Wick. We were talking because we're going on a Pierk's podcast.
Oh, nice. To talk
So
about the
we're
new John Wick.
yeah, we're gonna talk about John Wick, and it's like entirely mapped to Dante. So I have like a whole Google Doc where I have it all mapped out, pretty
Nice.
rigidly. Yeah.
I watched the
Um,
first. I hadn't seen any John Wicks. I just watched the first one, and I thought it was okay. Does it
the
get
first
better?
one, the first one is okay. It honestly, I haven't seen. I saw the first one the other night after seeing four, and yeah, the
Yeah,
first one's pretty mid. I won't lie.
yeah. I was like, this is okay. Like it wasn't that. Like I thought it was interesting that like almost nothing happens in it. I don't know. Like everything's kind of like,
Yeah.
hey. Sorry, my baby's crying here.
I'm
Oh,
completely unbothered. It's beautiful. Uh,
is she hungry? Yeah, I think she's hungry. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just chilling now. She's going to go eat.
oh, that's base.
Yeah.
Um,
So I thought the first John Wick was decent. I mean, there's like the line or whatever where the guy's like, "This is like we're just like we're here to like curse each other or whatever," like in the sense they both participated in this thing. So John Wick is kind of like brought in to be like the scourge of God in a way because he's like a sinner who is then like finds his salvation, but then he's like after like his wife dies, etc. He's like chosen by God to get revenge, like to be God's vengeance on the underworld or whatever, basically.
yeah. It it basically just like furthers that, like all
Yeah,
of the
he's like the
movies.
heroic anti-hero. Like it's kind of like an interesting take on the anti-hero, I guess, in the sense that he's like just an actual hero, but in the guise of the anti-hero.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I still haven't seen the second and third movie. I literally just went and saw the fourth one because Hole was like shilling it so hard.
Yeah, I'll probably
Um,
I'll check it out when it's on streaming eventually, but I don't go to the movies anymore. Too
because you don't have
busy.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to get out of the house for a 3 hour
Yeah,
action
just be like,
movie.
"Oh yeah, I gotta go see John Wick 4."
Sorry, wife and baby. Gotta
Yeah.
go see John Wick 4. I gotta do the Twitter discourse about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll say it eventually, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's good.
that's
I mean,
good.
you
I'll
can you
listen
can
to
just
your
skip.
podcast with the Yerk then if you guys are going to talk about the same thing. I was just curious because someone posted that you guys had a space yesterday, and I was like, damn, can I listen to that? And no, I can't because you didn't
Oh,
record
I'm
it, but it's all right.
sorry. Well,
It's all
the
right.
one of them I record. Well, because we were plotting to go on Geark's
That was the
podcast.
rough draft. I see. I get it.
Yes, yes.
Nice,
But we talked about a bunch of other stuff too. Because I read Venus and Adonis, so we were talking about some of that.
nice. Yeah,
Uh, I forget, it was like 2 hours, but it was a really good one. I definitely should have recorded it because I've just been doing spaces with him lately. Like as I like walk around the neighborhood.
oh, cool. He's joining. Cool. What's up? Oh
Yeah.
man. Cool. I love that I can do this. I was like, oh, you guys did a space. I can't hear it. Well, now I'm just summon both of you to my court.
Yeah. It's great. No, the whole mage spaces have been very productive and good.
Yeah, I've been reading more One Piece. Like not a lot. Not gonna lie. I just got out
Oh,
of the what's like the fucking what's the game they play? Like they have the thing, and if
oh,
you lose, you
the
lose.
Davy back
The
fight
Davy
with
back fight. I just finished that shit.
where he gets his revolutionary spirit from an afro. Uh,
Yes, because he's like Muhammad Ali or whatever.
yes,
That's so
that's like
funny.
the only good part of that whole thing.
I can see how that makes sense though, from like the perspective of like Oda's what? Oda's kind of like Gen Xy. Like he's
Yeah,
like
he's like a Gen X Japanese guy. Yeah,
so like for them, like in Japan, where you're getting these like black exploitation movies, like in like that, like it from the 70s, 80s, etc. like that being them being like, oh, this is so cool. Like I like it. It's so fun. I don't know. The Japanese perspective on everything is like the true Western perspective now. Like the
Well, so
Japanese are just like the avant-garde form of American culture now.
yeah, I mean there's like another manga called Baki the Grappler, and in that it's like basically this guy, his dad's the strongest guy in the world, and he has to fight all of these people, and he fights like Muhammad Ali's son, and he just like breaks his leg. But everyone respects Muhammad Ali a lot, because he's like the like evil the antagonist does this whole speech about how Muhammad Ali is like a hero for promoting equality. It's great.
Nice, nice, man. I've just been reeling today because got back on my reading ancient Irish annals grind here, and because I was like, holy shit, like what were their like economic practices? I was looking for like the Brehon laws and like their descriptions of like the laws and things. Because like I want like the Atlantean Irish thing, I think ties really into so many things, as like establishing this kind of groundwork of like what of like laws, like
Hmm.
from like the Stone Age. And I was thinking about how like in one Enoch and like the Book of Jubilees and stuff, that the description of the Nephilim and like the giants were probably just a description of this like Atlantic culture, like the like culminating around like the megalithic mounds in like Ireland when they got better at building ships because they were like really early on that ship grind, and they started invading from the west. And this is like with all like the Celtic from the west stuff as well. So I think you can actually see it in like the biblical records when they're talking about like the Danites and like the sons of Cain, etc., like the people who were like interbreeded with the angels and like spreading the secrets of God, like this early wave of like druidical technology and like the Stone Age. That this is probably what it's referencing.
Hey, did you ever see the movie Noah?
Which one? The newer one?
It's the Darren Aronofsky one.
No, I didn't. I'm not a huge
I,
Aronofsky fan, but maybe I'll check it out.
I'm not either. I'm not either. I saw it when I was 14 though. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen because they take like this Book of Enoch like Watchers stuff, like the fallen angels,
Yeah,
and they look like fucking Transformers. And the only reason they're there is so that they can have like a battle scene that takes like 10 minutes and just like the fallen angels as Transformers trying to get redeemed to heaven by defending the ark from the sons of Cain.
that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That's sick. I'll have to check that out then. But like, what do you think about that? What do you think about
Yeah.
my interpretation of the Nephilim as being the Atlanteans?
I think they're Transformers. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
okay, okay. They're just Transformers from outer space.
Irish
Irish Transformers
Transformers.
made out of rocks, just
It's
these giant
it's
rock
ancient
Yeah.
mechs.
ancient megalithic
Irish.
mechs.
Yeah, ancient like rock mechs, like
Exactly.
with
Think
Well,
about
modelly
it.
that's
rock.
that's actually the most recent development in One Piece is is they found ancient mechs.
No way. They're gonna have, of course, that's sick. Maybe a lot of mountains are secretly like Stone Age mechs that we don't know how to pilot anymore. I like that. That would be a fun manga.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's one of those like the mud flood like Tara like conspiracy theory type people who are obsessed with this notion that that like mountains were trees and things like this, and like they like to like look at like mountain ranges and be like, this actually is like a fallen giant, from those days. Like that's
Oh,
yeah,
there's that big like plateau in Wyoming that looks like a giant tree, and
yeah, yeah,
it's like sort of where Dante said purgatory was,
yeah,
like
yeah.
vaguely. Yeah.
I love that stuff, man. I've just been tying it all together though, because like everything just makes perfect sense. Like, after reading this Hudson book, especially the latest one, because he talks about how like the origin of interest payments really comes from the origin of like what would be interest payments or like fecundity payments for debts that were denominated in cows, because cows make more cows. So they're like, if I owe you money, then the money should also make more money the way a cow makes more cows. And that's like where interest payments come from. Crazy. Makes so much sense though. You think about it. Back in the day, like, if you commit a crime, you'd owe cows.
Well, I mean, I remember your your rant
Dude, I
about
wish I'd
cows.
recorded that. I wish I'd recorded that car ride up in NorCal when I was explaining to you all the origin of mammon and like cows and like monetary like all of these things, and then we drove by the big field of cows as I
I,
was talking.
that was
It was
beautiful.
beautiful.
I
Like,
mean,
look at
you
all that
had.
money.
I think you called it a cow content house.
Yeah, that's
It
what it
was
is.
great.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, because then it's like cows in like we people use like lol cows or whatever, but it's like a lol cow is basically someone who you can like
Milk.
extort money, like you can milk for money or buy or like attention coin in our new economy of where like views are capital and things like that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
No, it all works, and you know what? 4,000 years later, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I just love that like if you get really deep into economics, like in general, it all just becomes philology and it all just becomes like arguments over like how the term good was used in the past. Like Marx's son-in-law, Lafargue, he like goes through this whole thing in like ancient Greek philology to be like this idea of moral goodness is like a complete like decadence from the original terms for goods, always like or the good, always referring to like material goods, like the production of goods. The good is like having goods and making goods, and the production of goods, like that is in itself like the only thing that makes sense as the good. So, like, the moral good is really just a subservient type of good where it's like the type of conduct that is most conducive to the production of more goods, like fruitfulness. So then it's like you have these metaphors of like what is fruitfulness like in interpersonal relationships and things like this, like what type of behavior or comportment creates more abundance in the world in the terms of like literal goods as a and like people think of it backwards though where it's like this not like the concept of like monetary goods or something is like a later abstraction from like some pure like spiritual antiquity and like way back in the day nobody was concerned with material goods, they were just concerned with the goods of the spirit. But it's actually the complete inverse, and the real decadence is that people are like become focused on these like immaterial goods uh, and not on material goods like material like people saying it's materialistic to be concerned with uh, goods, and we have this whole ethic now of like, oh yeah, like power, like you should be, you don't want to be want more things. Like wanting more things is like avarice, and like true nobility is
Yeah,
when you
you need to do a fasting diet.
yeah, is when you have you live a minimalistic. You choose not because you could buy more things, but you choose to restrain your consumption, and that's what real goodness is. And that's why poor people are materialistic because they want to buy more things. Like, oh my God, how depraved is it to want to buy a Bugatti? like that's it's so funny to me because then you have all these rich people like Warren Buffett, etc. These like boring fucking milk toast ass rich people who are like, oh, I would never waste my money on a really cool car. I live in a like two double decker suburban house that I've lived in for 5 decades, and what I do with my money is I manage charities and things like that. That's the real decadence. That's the real
I,
decadence.
it's it's wild to me. I mean, people would look at me like I'm insane in college when I would tell them what I spent at the farmers market, because I go crazy.
Oh yeah,
Um,
well that's like one of the only things that's worth spending money on is like good produce and things like that, like not eating poison.
yeah, no, exactly. Well, and you just enjoy it more because it tastes better.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
no, these
No,
people
you
don't
should
like to
save it.
enjoy
What you
anything.
should do is you should never go to the farmer's market again. You should eat vegan chicken tenders every single night, and then the amount of money you'd save from that you can donate to people who are to
Yeah,
POC.
I can make sure like homeless people eat more McDonald's.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
Hey, what did you say, Mage?
what? I'm going to I'm going to castrate myself, and I'm going to sell my testicles on the black market, and I'm going to make sure that every homeless person gets a Big Mac tomorrow. That's that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing. No more fruitfulness. Only
Only austerity.
yes.
That's the true goodness is when you enslave yourself.
I was thinking yesterday regarding that thread you made about like charity and donation, like being kind of like gay. I was thinking about this about how like pagan like charity actually
It
is because
is.
in well in India, one of the things I learned astrologically is that in India, whenever you have like something bad in your birth chart, all of the planets have specific gods attached to them. And so what you do if you have like a planet in your birth chart that's configured badly is you're supposed to go do charity for that planet. So you go to like their altar and you give them money.
Yeah.
And
To like
this is supposed to
offset.
reflect back onto your life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
literally like the whole idea, right? Where it's like, oh, that's your carbon credit for your you to offset the bad influence of your stars by donating to the opposite thing. So it's like oil companies that are like, okay, we've offset our astrological alignment by investing some of our surpluses in green technology. It's literally pagan. It's disgusting.
I was born in California. I have to offset the almond milk drought by
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This whole idea of balance, of like creating balance by like, redressing grievances in this kind of like proportionate manner or something. It's a sort of pseudo scientific manner where it's like it's depraved. That's like Judas, literally Judas is the one who's like, Jesus, why don't we just sell everything? Like, why don't we sell this perfume so that we can give all the money to the poor? And Jesus is like, bitch, shut up. Like,
dude, it smells good. Shut the fuck up.
like, shut the fuck up, dude. I'm gonna die soon. You understand? You're gonna kill my ass and you're fucking bitching about money. You're gonna kill me for 30 coins. You fucking purse grubber. That's what Jesus says to Judas.
Oh, you don't want
Judas
this perfume? You are going to die.
Judas is the person who's like, what are you doing to contribute to the poor then? What are you doing?
I had a friend who has a joke. He was gonna write a poem about Jesus on the Phoenician trade routes going to like places, and it was gonna be called Christ at the Cockfights, and it was gonna be about Christ like betting on cockfights.
That sounds good.
Yeah, he never came to fruition, but I always encouraged
It
him.
should have been called like a line like you'd have to use like I owe a chicken to Asclepius like from Socrates somewhere
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
That would be so
exactly. There
good.
you go.
And the chicken that he owes to Asclepius is the one that Christ bets on. That would be so good.
Yeah, there you go.
Damn. See, this is like
I
most of the
he
poems are just good enough. You can just talk about an
I
idea
know
for a poem,
exactly,
and then who cares?
exactly.
Oh man. I love this. It's so sad to me that people aren't trying to get on this vibe. Like, life is so cool. Everything's so interesting. I don't know.
Dude,
Everyone's obsessed
Yeah.
with
everything is
war and
beautiful.
shit.
Nobody cares, and everybody hates everything. I don't get it. I can't could never be me.
Like, exuberance is beauty, as Blake says. Like, the real sin is to be fucking boring and being dull, like, being dull,
It's
not
it's
not
just this
embracing
like
your character.
dour. Oh no, it's over. It's all over. It's been over. It's
No, but the
like,
thing is that like if you embrace that entirely as your character, then you'd become a prophet. Like that's like true, like Jeremiah. The problem really is people's lukewarmness in their characters, where like they're not truthful about like who they are and like what they want, and they won't like represent or stand firm or draw a line or like be themselves. That's like the real sin is to that's like what Blake is talking about, like when he's saying like the like that the morally good, these like woke scolds, etc., that they just don't have any strong enough passions to actually do anything. They allow like reason to dominate over everything, and so they don't ever actually like do anything or produce anything or like say anything. It's all just lukewarm, like just trying to negate or cancel out what they would call extremism or radicalism, etc.
I mean, love seeketh not itself to please. The fucking pebble. I mean, sorry, the clods of
The clay
clay.
and the
Yeah,
pebble. Yeah, yeah,
trotted by cattle, trotted by capital. It's
yeah,
true.
yeah. Yep, yep. Everything makes sense. I'm just loving like I think that like the most fruitful thing is like right for me anyway right now is I just keep rereading like Finnegan's Wake, and I'm just like holy shit, there's so much in here. Man. is because it's like the whole story of Finnegan's Wake there is like really all about like the four, like like in the four Zoas, like the number four. There's four counties in Ireland. There's like the four high kings at Tara, etc. So it's literally about like transplanting this like Blakean cosmology onto the entire history of Ireland from like the Stone Age, and it's all juxtaposed on top of each other at the same time. It's so fucking cool. Like there's so much in it, and I don't think anyone could write something as um, condensed and like meaningful anymore because it's like we're still. It's been like almost 100 years now, and we're still just reading Finnegan's Wake. Like nobody's even afterwards. Like there's nothing even worth mentioning that comes close.
And people still think it's nonsense. They just think it's a troll face.
I think what's sad about it though is that there's probably going to be less and less people every year who get any type of training that would enable them to even begin to read something like Finnegan's Wake because the humanities are like at least in the West the amount of time and money that goes into uh, you know having the ability to read about all of this shit and put it all together is less and less valued. So, like, you'll probably be getting like better Finnegan's Wake scholarship out of China for the next 100 years than out of here. Hey, what's up?
I think part of it is also that like people writers see Finnegan's Wake as like this one-off thing that you shouldn't try to continue stylistically when Finnegan's Wake is literally part of like the original tradition of the novel, this macaronic
Yes,
tradition
yes,
where you just you're which is total wordplay, just taking etymologies from everywhere, putting them together, all this stuff. And so they can't see it as like a tradition. They can't see it as like a full revolution,
yeah, yeah, and
revolution in the true
there's
sense.
there has been some like extensions from Finnegan's Wake. Like if you read Alan Moore's book Jerusalem, which he put out like I don't know what like 4 or 5 years ago now, there's a whole part that's written in like kind of Finneganese about Lucia Joyce, Joyce's daughter, which is really good. And there was a big wave of science fiction stuff like Philip Joseph Farmer, I think his name is, did like a book that's kind of like in Finneganese. There was a wave of people doing a lot with Finnegan's Wake for a while, but
There was a
hey,
there was a boomer on one of the haiku forums I went on who had written a series of haiku in Finneganese. He had written, and it was like an entire collection. It was just on this forum, and then of course, uh, I destroyed the forum with bots, and now it's gone forever.
you warlord.
Yeah, but I need to find him again because we talked about this. I was trying to get him to read Richard Stannyhurst's Aeneid.
Oh yeah, Stannyhurst Aeneid is so fun. The
I
roiling
know,
bellyings of his bloody matter, etc.
huzzing, and puzzing.
It's so fun. I was saying what I really want to do is I want to do like I would love to put on like a performance of Timon of Athens, like but like in modernity, I guess, like just making like I don't know, not like doing a cheap modern adaptation of it, but just like filming it like in the modern times or no, but I had this
Yeah,
even better idea, which would be it would be a movie about Edward de Vere performing Timon of Athens, and like it being like kind of like biographical in the sense that it's extremely autobiographical, but like doing a kind of de Vere Shakespeare movie centered around Timon of Athens, I think would be really cool. But I need millions of dollars. So if anyone wants to get me millions of dollars, I would love that.
hey, I am currently in talks with a guy who's just getting into the movie industry, and he has the number of one of the Harry Potter producers.
Nice. Get some British intelligence money.
So exactly, this is how we do it.
I
Well,
think,
And also
yeah,
he's of course Oxfordianized, and because I told him, and now he just tells everybody else
nice,
about it.
nice. Like we're winning. We're winning. Alexander Wall's latest
Exactly.
video was one of the best ones so far too.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
one was fucking great. I've
No, it was amazing.
it's so much. There's so much cool stuff. I feel like I honestly am like super optimistic about the future of all of this stuff because every year it seems to me more and more people are just getting exposed to more and more of this type of stuff, and there's really no going back once it's like out of the fucking box, out of Pandora's box here. So it's gonna revolutionize everything, especially because like the academics. Imagine getting a literature degree today or whatever, and you have people like going to take a Shakespeare class, and you're like talking about like Lord knows what, and these people like you're getting like professors teaching Shakespeare who haven't even read the entire Shakespearean corpus and like completely write off the authorship question as being like a conspiracy theorist thing or whatever. And they ultimately are just like, trying to get grant money and this super banal shit. And then it's like you can go on YouTube and watch Alexander Waugh stuff, and you have like a whole like burgeoning community of people doing real like philological research into Elizabethan literature. And it's like that for so many different things. It's like that all over the place for everything. And everyone's fears of like corporate censorship or whatever, I think, are pretty unfounded, considering that only really affects like what the front page of Reddit, and who cares about that shit?
Yeah, and the other thing is that I think the current Supreme Court is the Supreme Court with the most Oxfordians.
Oh yes, I know that this is a big thing. I
It's
mean, and
like,
that because like lawyers are especially interested in
yeah,
the
lawyers
question.
and
Yeah.
historians, that's his big thing. Is like, and it's always the, the like the literature guys who write the biographies, even though they don't really have that type of training.
Oh my god, like Greenblatt's fucking biography is atrocious.
Yeah, or the what's his name? Stanley Wells biography, where he talks about
Him
like
beating off.
Shakespeare
Yeah.
masturbating as a masturbating as a teenager. He's just like, he grew up and he belched and he farted, and then he so like, wow,
Wow, that's where all this inspiration came from. He was just a normal guy. He was a heckin'
this
having a
guy is
normal one.
knighted by the queen. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, he was having a normal
he
one.
was
Yeah,
having a normal one. It's not like he was
he was
staging.
the first come town. That was what the Globe was. The first come town. Like,
Yeah, that's what they write it like. Yeah, it was exactly like one of those podcasts where of New York City stand-up comics where they get their wisdom from the common people just in their day-to-day life going about this city and riffing on it, and that's really what it was. And it was really challenging to the political elites of the time, I'm sure.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, the
this
whole
is what
mythology
Dante
around
talked
it.
about. This is what he talks about in De Vulgaria Eloquentia. This is what it's all about.
It's so funny. It's so funny, man, because we're on the cutting edge here. We're blazing the trails of the future, and I don't know. Everyone else is eating our dust. I feel like the discourse is like a decade behind or something. I don't even know what people care about right now. I don't know what people are worried about because I'm like I'm solving political economy. We're accelerating. Christ accelerationism is the only meaningful political platform today is Christian accelerationism, and it's already happening. It's happening, folks.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, I don't even know what the discourse is. I talked to some people on here in DMs, and it just feels like it's like 2017 shit. And I'm like, what are we even fucking talking about? I don't care about lib bookstores and shit.
Yeah, no, I was saying, I think wokeness is good now. I'm entirely on board with wokeness. I want everything to get much worse in that way, because I want the army to be super woke, and I want them to do even more drag shows. I want them to have a drag queen story hour every single day. I want them to explicitly enforce this by gun onto the country. I think it'd be good. That's why I think that COVID lockdowns were good. I think that making everyone take the vaccine was good in this like tyrannical fashion. I think all of this was good. I think it's all good ultimately. It's like
it actually it shuts up all of like the worst
it does.
conversations. Like, nobody know, like, if you just censor like all of the like political people, like, nothing happens.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I always said that where it's like people are always like, "Oh, you're not really challenging it. You're not like a real rebel like me because I get my accounts banned for saying the N-word." And it's like I can't get banned. No one is ever going to ban me because the algorithms can't even make fucking sense of what I'm saying. Like I'm too far ahead. Like I'm not. It's they can't even determine what my position is. Like you know what I mean? Like if you're like these people like they go around like painting targets on their own backs and they're like, "Oh my god, someone shot an arrow at the target I painted on my back." Whoa. I'm so oppressed. It's just pathetic. Like I'm sick of it.
Yeah, and they very often have basically nothing to say. It's just like the libs are in control. President Joe
Yeah,
Biden. It's over. It's like, okay.
it's just boring. It's very boring. Like I think like aren't people still having like that discourse where they like found out that he's like from Newton and that his family's Jewish or whatever, and they're
I
like people
thought
are
you
like, oh
knew
my
this in like
god, oh
2018.
my
I don't
god.
understand why.
I've known
Like,
this the whole time.
yeah,
I don't know why this was ever a secret. It's just very funny to me how like nothing changes. People have been discussing the same things for like 6 years, going nowhere.
yeah, that's the Longhouse.
For real though. For real, that's the real Longhouse. For real, for
Yeah,
real.
the real
Because
Longhouse is the discourse.
no, because all of that is based off of this fundamentally wrong concept of patriarchy and what masculinity is. Because there's this idea that masculinity is just like, getting vengeance and lashing out at people like effeminately when you're offended by things they say and things like that, and that's not really what masculinity is. Like real masculinity is like being like standing still, drawing the line, and like ultimately, and this is like a good thing, it produces peace and things like this. Like being the head of a household doesn't mean being a screeching mother, and that's what like all of this model of masculinity that these people are buying up, like the Andrew Tate shit, like this. It's the most effeminate fucking like gigolo style masculinity I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
It's
you need to go to the
like
PTA meetings and
disgusting.
own the libs. That's what real fathers do. They
They go screw they go yeah they act like Ben Shapiro. They like have a little list of
um
these are my gripes.
yeah,
These are my
they're nailing
gripes.
their grievances to the bake sale line.
Yeah. I'm taking this up with the PTA. Go
Well, I mean,
ahead.
it's ultimately like they think that it's like they all think in like this like legal manner, and it's really I think that that's just gay. I don't know. I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same way.
it's
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just been thinking about this more because like I think that like resorting to violence is ultimately effeminate because like real power doesn't actually have to, like the king doesn't get his hands dirty. You know what I'm saying? Like there was taboos on this in all ancient like things where any man of actual authority would never get themselves dirty in this ruffianism. Like that's like much later conception of what it means to be a man is to fight people over your like petty grievances. It's very sad. Jesus was a real man. Like Jesus was that's a man. That's like what real masculinity is Jesus. And that's true of everything. You can always just point to Jesus as the correct role model here because Jesus fucking wronged. Jesus did nothing wrong. That's my radical platform.
No, I
Well,
agree.
this was like overt. This discourse of masculinity was overt during the early American Republic, because like the whole concept of like gentlemen dueling was that you weren't supposed to kill each other, and the reason for that is because in the lower classes, among the the effete barbarians, it was just a bunch of drunk people, and they would have like rough and tumbles where they would gouge each other's eyes out and tear each other's testicles off,
Yeah,
and that was what was seen as being like a feat compared to true gentlemanly dueling where you just shoot in the air.
yeah, pure formal. It's like, yeah, because like true gentlemen would take it up on the chessboard, and then they would play out a beautiful line, and then they would shake hands, things like that. Like that's what a real man would do. This whole like, yeah, exactly. There's this whole like it's true in American culture right now that there's this like this backwards notion of what masculinity is, and it's like really like men acting as tyrannical females are considered, like acting as if that's what masculinity is. It's pretty sad, and most of the time they're getting into these fights over their own, like the fact that they're dominated by women, and they like they're like dominated by like their pornographic lust over women, and it totally dominates their psyches, and they don't even see it, and like that's why it's funny, like the whole like bodybuilding male to male transsexual idea is that it ultimately emerges from the same place as the autogynephilia, where it's like people having the like being completely dominated by their passions. It's gross.
Well, I mean,
Well, it's like that. It's like back in like 2016 or whatever, when all the videos would come out of like Caitlyn Jenner threatening to kill like Ben Shapiro on shows.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's kind of what it is.
straight up, and it's like Ben Shapiro in that case was actually being a G. I've been watching the Cartier family on YouTube. You guys know the Cartier family?
I've
Have you
seen
seen
YouTube
these
short
videos?
clips.
It's literally just like I think it's like 5 or 6 black dudes who just like react to things, and they've been doing it for Lord knows how long. But the best ones are them just like watching like Ben Shapiro clips and being like, "Yo, this guy's going off for real, for real." Like it's so funny. Like I was watching them watch Thomas Sowell stuff. It's great. It's like what's funny is they were like actually like black dudes are not that racist against white people. It's really like the whole like racial resentment thing is all comes from like a tyrannical form of femininity of like the angry mom. That's like what all of this is. And that's actually what rules this spirit. William Blake talks about this with like you have like Urizen, but like the real ruling spirit is like his feminine consort, who's like the mother of sorrows, just like constantly crying and wailing and like trying to protect her children, but in doing so, like just creating more and more violence and then crying over it. And that's like what this society is like.
Well, I mean, like he has a line as well where he's like, "Oh, like masculinity now is like knavery." It's like everyone
Yes.
wants to be Machiavelli, and it's like this is pathetic. You want to be like a sneaking courtier. It's like this is not. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no chivalry there. There's like Don Quixote is a better role model. I like that meme. Do you remember the like the schizo meme account on Instagram or
Yeah, yeah,
something?
yeah. Epic
He had
serial
one
guy
about Don Quixote,
memes.
epic serial guy memes. That one. He had one about Don Quixote where it was like, oh, isn't he crazy? Because it's like he calls these prostitutes princesses, and
Christ did the
he's you
same
know what I,
thing.
yeah,
Christ did the
exactly,
same thing.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, and like that, they're like, we won't need more people like that, do we? And it's like that's Don Quixote, like in being a fool, a holy fool, was truly Christ-like.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I just think everything's getting better too, and culturally, like the latest episode of Succession was possibly like the best episode of television ever done. Maybe I'm still like reeling from it because of how fucking good it was. Because it's also like complete. It's like completely a slap in the face of like what you would expect a show like that to be about. Because what it's really about is how Logan Roy, like basically Rupert Murdoch, like the head of Fox News, is like a truly more moral person than all of the critics because he's like open about his like kind of amorality, whereas the other ones are all like sneaking. They're all like these little sneaking hypocrites who like don't actually know how anything. They're not serious people, as he says at the end of this episode. And it was like truly Shakespearean. His speech at ATN, which is like the stand-in for Fox News, where he like talks, like makes it seem like he's like governing a pirate ship, was I was like this is so fucking good. Oh my god, it's such a good show. It's such a good troll on on like what the general audience is for HBO. If you consider like The Last of Us, which was trash, just ended, and now it's like okay, now we're back to the good shit. You like the same audiences are now watching Succession. It's like such, must be such a whiplash.
I saw like I haven't seen the new episode yet, but I saw some discourse where they were saying that the like early episodes of this season were bad, and it doesn't get good until like episode 3 or 4. That's what like the reviewers were saying. So,
The reviewers are fucking. What's
oh,
the
I
point
know.
of film of these reviewers? What is the point? Someone said that yesterday. They wanted me to talk about critics and reviewers, but so I'll do that now. They've literally served no purpose. They're part. They always were a part of an advertising regime. The whole point of these critics was to advertise movies. So that's the only reason why critics exist is so because they get free advertising. It's just part of a promotional vehicle for the marketing of things. That's the only reason why critics exist. Except that we now everyone's a critic, so there's literally no point in having these like special. Oh, I'm a critic. Like you can read Letterboxd reviews or fucking Amazon reviews or just see what anyone has to say because everyone's criticizing shit all the time and everyone's marketing shit all the time. We don't need these professional marketing roles in that sense anymore. In it, like because like that's not how things work anymore. And they're never going to go back. We're never going to have literary critics, and we're never going to have film critics and things like that. They're never going to come back. It's never going to matter anymore. People are going to be recognized for their ability to do such things like that by doing it volitionally and like building an actual reputation for it instead of just being bequeathed a platform, to from which to like be like, oh, I'm this critic.
Well, and it's much more meaningful, like rather than because most of the critics, like, well, most people, how they criticize things is they're just like, oh, yeah, I didn't like the pacing. Like, they just review it like it's a fucking roller
They review it
coaster.
like a drug. They review
Yeah,
it like most critics also review things as like pharmaceuticals, like in video games, right? They'll be like, "Oh, this quelled my itch for a game for this amount of hours." It's like they might as well be reviewing fentanyl patches, or like it's like reading like marijuana strain reviews, or like beer reviews or whatever. They like at best you can get some sense of like what you can expect from it. That's like at best what you can get, and that's literally just like what you could get reading a description of a movie. Like, you know what I mean? Um, the
yeah.
real critics that actually matter are ones who have a particular vision, and like their curatorial regime. That's why Armand White is like the only film reviewer that I read, because people call him a contrarian. But it's not that he's a contrarian, it's that he has a very specific taste in movies that most film critics do not have. They do not have taste. They don't have taste
Everyone
at
else
all.
is contrary to
Yes,
him.
exactly. He's usually right. Like he's usually like right on
Yeah.
board. I love the fact that one of my Chinese like MAGA communist friends or whatever was like Armand White just reviewed that Chinese epic film that just came out, and he like really liked it. And so I was like, and they were like talking to each other on Twitter, and I was like, I love when my friends get along, and he liked it, and that's really the future right there. Is unfolding right there, is that you have like Armand White and like these like Chinese communists being like, you know what, this movie rocked. That's the future. This movie that is this like Chinese epic movie is the real MAGA spirit, etc. I love that.
Yeah, Hole and I are
Yeah,
gonna get.
I think
No, you go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, you
Actually,
go
you know
ahead.
what? No, I will go ahead. Fuck you. Fuck you. I will go ahead. All right, what I was going to say is I think criticism is so obviously like retarded in the contemporary age because none of the critics want to talk about spoilers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they can't even give like an actual like they can't like give actual insight into the thing. Like it's
They just
yeah.
talk about it's just literally it's just like it's like therapy now. Like everything, like all these critics and like so much of like art content, etc. Like the discussion around art is literally just like role playing therapy, where it's like, what are they really talking
Yeah,
about?
it's
It's like,
like
I hope no
if you're a
like
fan of this, you should watch
yeah,
this.
yeah, 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 because it'll like soothe you. Like it's like you're prescribing it
Yeah.
as like a fucking medical regime. Like
This
oh,
is for you.
this is for you. This is your pill. You should swallow it. It'll cure what ails you. When real good art is gonna fucking make you sick sometimes. It's gonna make you puke. It's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never people get really confused when I say that I read something and then I vomit because that happens fairly often nowadays. Um, well, I literally vomited after reading La Vida Nuova. I couldn't deal.
It was too good.
It is, it is. Well, it's just a fucking gut punch, man. It's like he's gonna write the most beautiful poetry for a woman, and then you realize that he wrote Divine Comedy. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hope you guys can get in contact with the director of the John Wick films, and we can
Oh,
adapt
dude.
the
Bring them
biblical
on to read
sublime.
books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I mean, we're gonna try and get something to him because
Yeah.
I
We're it's so obvious that he is crying out for help.
yeah
He's
Yes.
he's he's literally putting these like these Dore posters in his film. It's like so obvious when you're looking at it, and you just imagine Chad like on the set with these like stunt guys, and he's like, "Hey, do you see what I'm doing there?"
Do you know who Dore is? He's pretty
Yeah,
cool. He's kind of like a manga.
yeah.
yeah.
Dude, there's like giant posters of like the Paradise Lost Dore illustrations. It's
Of
yeah
course.
Yeah, and as he's about to descend into a nightclub.
yeah the
It's funny to me that there's like a lot of also the problem with criticism is that people refuse to like constant like read intentionality, like it's part of the spoilers thing too. Spoilers, John Wick 4 is Dante's Inferno. Spoilers, this is the type of thing that it is. like they won't engage with things in the
Yeah.
terms of like the tradition, in the terms of like the fucking unfolding narrative of ourselves to ourselves in a larger sense. They go like, oh no, this is a discrete packaged, this is a discrete single, like it's like a Coca-Cola like bottle. It's like this one. It's like it's like a new product, right? And it has no connection to any other product that has ever existed.
Yeah, but then the thing is that obviously, me and Mage have talked before. We're talking about, Chad in his interviews. He openly says this is structured according to the Divine Comedy. He just openly says this stuff. But there's the other thing that makes this so retarded is that in the third movie begins with this Russian guy coming to assassinate John Wick. John Wick goes to the library and he starts going through the library, and this Russian guy comes out from behind a bookcase and he's reading Dante, and he reads out loud, we were not to live as beasts, but to follow virtue and knowledge. And then he says, Dante, and he tilts his head and he closes the book. Then they talk a little bit, and then they fight, and Dante kills the guy with the Dante book. He uses the Dante book to bash his teeth in.
Well, and it's beautiful
That's
because
beautiful.
it's like it's like actually good like within the film as like a Dante commentary, because it's that's what Ulysses is saying to Dante in hell.
Yeah.
Like Ulysses is explaining to him like, oh, we really need to have like better knowledge, and then instead like this guy literally gets his brain blasted with a copy of the Inferno. Uh,
You are going to die.
yeah, you are
He
going to
gets
die.
boom,
Boom. Beautiful
boom.
scene.
And then of course the fourth film literally opens with a Dante quote too. It opens with um it opens not only with abandon all hope, you enter here, but it begins with the entire speech that precedes that.
Oh, that rocks. I gotta
Yeah.
get through all of the John Wick movies now. I just watched the first one. I don't know if you heard that earlier, but I only
Oh
just
yeah.
recently watched the first one because I don't know, I haven't been keeping up on
They
fucking John
only
Wick
get
movies.
better, is what it seems like.
Yeah,
I
because
hope so
the
because
key
the first
thing the
one's
key thing
okay.
the first one, yeah, the thing with the first one is that it was directed by both Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. And David Leitch, out of the two, I'm when I say this, I'm saying this with complete respect for David Leitch's work as like a stuntsman and so on, but he's also a complete redditor. So like
Yeah.
the movies he went on to do after this were like Deadpool 2 and
Oh God.
Bullet Train and stuff like that. So it's all stuff devoid of that. Once
Yeah.
David Leitch left, you just get these Chad Stahelski, visions, Dantean visions, and he ups the color so much. He ups like the visual style to the
Oh, that's
nine.
good. I
And
hope.
it's also
Yeah.
when
All
you
right.
get like
Nice.
the whole like cosmology of the thing, where you have this like assassin organization that seems almost like a union of the apostolic churches. Like it always seems like the apostolic churches have never separated in the world, because all of the Catholic imagery is used directly alongside Orthodox imagery and so on. And then you just have like all these characters named, like fucking Cassius, like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
shit like this. Like his wife's name is Helen, so like the entire thing begins with Helen.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't think about.
there's
Oh.
the like the fourth movie opens with a guy named Charon dying. Like,
Yeah, it's literally
Oh
Charon.
wow.
And then yeah, and the key thing here is Charon. He's the guy at the desk of the Continental Hotel. The hotel
The
assassin
Continental. Yeah.
organization. Yeah. He's the guy at the desk there, and from two onwards. And so he literally conveys people. He's literally conveying people into hell.
I guess Keanu Reeves makes sense, like, because I'm always like, what the fuck, like, why is Keanu Reeves chosen for these things? Because I don't think he's like, he's not really like an actor. I don't know. He just kind of is there,
yeah,
Yeah, well,
and he
the,
likes
dude.
the
the things
thing
he's
is,
in.
like,
The,
in the case of John Wick, one of the reasons that he's good is because he volunteered himself to be a stuntsman too. So he's
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
all this stuff as he goes on.
well,
yeah.
it's
That's true.
beautiful.
That's true.
There's
I was saying I think it's good because he's like half Japanese, so he kind of is like American hegemony, where he like is like the like he is like the new America, which includes Japan as like its like 52nd state.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so beautiful. There's an interview with Chad and Keanu where they're going through Reddit fan theories, and one of the
Yeah.
Reddit fan theories is like, I think Dante is going to be really important to this movie, and then it goes off on this fucking tangent of like Reddit nonsense, and then Chad is like, you're kind of retarded, but like, good instincts with the Dante stuff, very overtly. And then Keanu is like, well, what if the Divine Comedy is like the multiverse? And then he just starts like
Yeah.
screaming
Oh
blender
my.
noises. He's like, blend it all up. It's like, it's incredible.
Yeah. We're just going through these interviews with the cast to see if we find anything. We found another. We found one with Lawrence Fishburne, and he he opens it by saying, "I'm the motherfucking Greek chorus." And he literally is constantly surrounded in the movies by like homeless guys that follow him like a visual
Like a
Greek
Greek
chorus.
chorus. That's
Yeah, like a
beautiful.
visual, exactly, dancing around.
That rocks.
He like
Man.
produces the he like produces like a boat to travel into the seventh circle on like the River of Blood. It's beautiful.
That rocks. That
Dude,
rocks.
when they descend
Man.
into the eighth circle, like the announcer, because it's like a battle royale, there's like an announcer, and the announcer is like, and now on Eighth Street, everyone. It's so ridiculously overt. It makes me laugh so much. It's amazing.
I guess, like, I mean, I'm gonna watch them. You guys have definitely sold me on it. I was a little disappointed in the first one, but it sounds like they just get better. So I'm hyped about that because the first one I was like, this is okay, but I don't know what the fuck. How did this spawn like a huge fucking
I
franchise?
think it's just because of
Well,
like
the key thing. Well, no. It's the key thing is that like before that, action hadn't been done in that way because this entire thing, it's like the reason that movie was so successful is because it's part of this trend that began in the 2010s of like stuntsmen who had been working for a few decades becoming directors and like making movies that like stuntsmen would want to make, movies that are these fully visual things that are they're told in like a kinetic language rather than in pure
Yeah,
dialogue. And so that's kind of what that was. It was just like a basic action movie with like,
no
but
quips.
up to the nine. Yeah.
There's like no
And then,
quippiness to it either. They kind of
exactly,
avoided the
exactly.
2010s plague of
dude,
like, oh, someone's having a normal one.
dude,
Yeah.
the fourth movie is insane. The dialogue is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's so in, like there's one time what did they say? They say oh, it's the quote I've been repeating in our group chat, Mage. What is it? Those who cling to life die. Those who
So
cling to
true.
death live. And and they just say this before the final duel, and there's no reason for them saying this.
That's
They like
great, dude.
frame John Wick like entirely in like Dantean terms. They're like he's like this like walking specter. Um, and they like oppose him to Donnie Yen as like a blind man who is like has like a perverted trinity to him. It's literally like it's very well structured. It's great.
I'm hyped to watch it. All right. I think I'm gonna see if there's any other speakers who want anything from me because I think we'll end up just exhausting your future podcasts on
We've
John Wick
already
if we
exhausted it
continue
a
to do this.
lot. It's yeah.
We've exhausted it. That we're going
Yeah.
on the podcast to bring God to man.
Yes.
Yes.
No
Yes.
political
I was
discourse. We're just talking about Dante and John Wick.
just revelation, pure revelation. Beautiful. All right. Well, I'm gonna remove you guys. Thanks for being on here, and I'm gonna. This person's been waiting, so. Berta Qua, whatever, man. What's up, dude? What can I do for you? You're up, dude. You're on.
Oh wait, I made that like 15 minutes ago and forgot about
Oh,
it.
I know, dude. But I thought you were patiently waiting
No,
while I figured out that
I
shit.
completely
You
forgot.
know, I'm a barista here, right? So I was like staying there and I'm chatting to like my boys here, and I'm just like, oh, there's a customer in line. He's been waiting for a while. I am gonna have to service this customer
Uh,
because I'm a noble service worker.
yeah, You're the real proletariat.
I'm the real proletariat. Yeah, me right here, right now. This is proletarian labor, my friends. Is talking about John Wick movies.
No, I mean initially the main reason I requested speaker was I wanted to ask what's the best translation of Dante to read. That's it.
Well, I would say it like so. There's like different levels of translations. But I would say like the one that my Italian professor, who's this old grandma, said was the closest to like a literal translation. It's not as artfully done because it's closer to a literal translation. Is the Mandelbaum translation, and so that one's good. Like as like a like that's probably like the most scholarly one. If you're looking to like get like the closest to the original meaning of the words. But there's been a bunch of translations that are like possibly more artfully done. Like Longfellow's is really good. There was a whole movement in America to translate Dante. They had this thing called the Dante Club back in the 19th century, and that's like where Longfellow and these other people all gathered to. There's a big vogue for Dante at the time, as well. Not that Dante's ever gone out of style, but it was a big American project to have like an American translation of Dante. So I also am a big fan of the Longfellow one for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would highly recommend it. And if you are only going to read the Inferno and you're not going to read the entire thing, then don't do it. And if you really want to do it right, you should read La Vita Nuova first, which is basically the prequel. It's basically like the prelude to the Divine Comedy, and it's also one of the best works of literary criticism and theory ever written. I learned more about poetry back when I first read La Vita Nuova from that book than any book I had read prior to reading that book. So I always recommend people start with that. It's also like formally built off of so the La Vita Nuova is all based around the number 9, and the Divine Comedy is all based around the number 10. So it's like a logical progression, like numerically.
Right.
But yeah,
okay.
So that's my recommendation. That's what I always say to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Anything else I can do for you? Or you want to talk about anything?
There was nothing else on my mind at the moment, so I can if I have something throughout the conversation, I'll
okay.
add it.
I got some comments on here to see if I got any good ones. On this topic of reviewers, I intentionally refuse to look up reviews or analyses of Finnegan's Wake while reading last night so that I don't end up ruining the book from someone else's pornographic experience. That's probably good. There are good books on Finnegan's Wake. I could recommend a few. Joyce's Book of the Night is really good. One I think is called The Curse of Kabbalah, which is just all about like Kabbalism in Finnegan's Wake and like Egyptian kind of like Egyptian rituals and stuff that exist in it. Joyce's Book of the Dark. There's Joseph Campbell's Skeleton Key of Finnegan's Wake is okay as a sort of primer. But yeah, there's some good books on Finnegan's Wake that are actually worth reading, like not just like, fucking Goodreads reviews. That was one comment. And Leopold, I'll let you on. What can I do for you? Next person in line. What kind of latte do you want? Do you want an Americano? King Leopold, what can I do for you? Leopold, you're fumbling the bag here. Are you? Oh, he's gone. And he's gone. All right, well, oh, he's back. Leopold, what can I do for you? Yeah, what's up, man?
So, I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but what's your view on why in the West people only really talk about the Inferno, but no one cares about Purgatorio or Paradiso? Is it
the treason of the clerks. It's just laziness. It's just pure mushiness. It's pure apathy. It's just the fact that people don't genuinely enjoy literature anymore in that way. They don't enjoy being challenged in that way. I think possibly it has a lot to do with like this turn against Christianity as being somehow like below our consideration or intellectual consideration. So it's like you have all these people who are like agnostic or whatever. They don't give a fuck. What they really care about is like talking about Freud and Deleuze and all this nonsense. They really care about that, but then they end up having to teach Dante. And then they're like, oh, like, blah. And I don't know. It's really just a mushiness. It's just like a lack of spirit, lack of vigor, a lack of discipline. ultimately, right? Like, because it's like a long book, it's a really long poem, and it's like complicated. It's not that simple. It's not. It doesn't just tell you what it means immediately. It's designed to actively change your consciousness. So people try to get away with everything. People just try to get away with doing as little work as possible. People don't want to read. People don't want to challenge themselves. They just want to like be made to feel good, and that's not what Dante's trying to do. So, you know, if you like in most people's minds when they're going to school, it's a pretty utilitarian manner where they just know that they're there to get credentials, to get a job or something. So they're like, why would I waste my time reading the book when I could get an A without doing it? And that's the type of question. Even asking that type of question means that the whole study of the humanities is lost anyway, because it's not about fucking credentializing. It's about like a love for wisdom. And if you don't have that love for wisdom, then you shouldn't be there. But here it is. You know, you got people who have no authentic love for literature and they're teaching it.
Yeah, I also didn't grow up Christian, but I found reading that book like the Inferno is the easiest for secular minds to get. It's almost like a video game or whatever, with, like different levels. But Paradiso, and like there's like way more to it, and like I could almost like feel myself kind of getting more religious as I read through kind of all of it from start to finish.
This is a thing that they actually had a problem with back when they were doing great books curricula still, like in the earlier part of the 20th century, was that they kept having these people converting to, like, you know, you'd be like, oh, you have them read these great books, and all of a sudden they like becoming monks and shit like that. You had these hippies who were going to like, you know, like John Hopkins great book programs and then becoming like fucking mendicant friars and stuff like that after reading Dante or like reading these types of things. Mm-hmm. And they're like, ooh, like, you know, we really don't want that. You know, we need these boys to go be marketing majors and to make, you know, hot apps. They can't become mendicant friars.
Yeah, it's very intense. Like, I also didn't like grow up Christian, but like reading the Bible like as like an adult and then reading this stuff is like you understand why it's so popular, right? And I also like the imagery of like, you know, you descend into hell. Like going downhill is like easy, right? But then purgatory is you have to climb up. That requires a lot of effort. And then I think the heaven portion, like, you're just kind of flying around. Like it's almost like effortless.
Purgatory, so it's like the basic, like if you don't read Purgatory, so much of the Inferno just can't make sense, because the whole idea is that it turns all of the tortures of hell upside down and they become kind of like training to make yourself stronger. You know, like so it's like that transvaluation, which is most interesting.
I don't know if there's this guy on YouTube called like Wendigoon who posts a bunch of
cool
videos.
He did a pretty good stuff on Dante. I think he's genuinely a pretty good guy. I think he makes some good content. A lot of his stuff is pretty stupid, but the best thing he's ever done is getting some people to read Dante, like doing the whole thing, like Purgatory. Like when I mean, it was very moving when he's talking about how moved he was by passages in the Divine Comedy, because like I feel the same way. You know, when people are like, you know, when they walk through the fire with like oh yeah, I get that shit works me up too.
Yeah, it's great. And then I remember watching the videos, and it's very funny because in Inferno, he just makes fun of Dante and like, oh, this guy's an idiot. And then in Purgatory, he's kind of like, oh, I take a lot of that back, actually. You know, this is actually pretty cool. And the comments are like, wow, this is so funny that like you kind of completely changed your mood and tone of a lot of these videos. And later videos do become like a little sappy, but like in a good way. I don't know. I think it fits like the mood.
Well, it's because think of it.
So funny.
It's like imagine it's like he was coming at it from like doing a Dark Souls lore video, right? Where it's just kind of like this kind of cataloging of things in a kind of like, you know, with quips and things like that, very YouTubey. But then like the actual poetry itself affects him so much that he immediately becomes disgusted with himself, which is like part of it. You know, that's like actually something that'll happen by reading something like that. Is you'll be like, holy shit, like how could I have been being such, why, like, you know what I mean? You like feel ashamed for your lack of reverence for like truly good things.
I just have one more question with that, kind of related.
For sure.
You know, like Leo Tolstoy has this book, it's called The Gospel of Jesus, or it's basically like a syncretic version of all the Gospels. Have you read that?
Yeah. Actually, Wittgenstein carried that with him in the trenches of World War I. Yes. Yeah, I think.
I was literally going to ask you, what do you make of that? That, you know, Wittgenstein is this guy who's like, you know, like a Viennese Jew and like ostensibly a very analytical philosopher, and I think essentially converted because of that book. And actually, when I read that, I got that book, and then it kind of also, I don't know, like had a big influence on me. But wanted to get like your take on that. Is like, does this make sense? Is it kind of like in line with like what he thinks, or is it? Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think Wittgenstein is very much a Christian, like especially if you read his notebooks and stuff like that. I mean, he like is always like basically like what he did was he used he's kind of like Hamann, who used like David Hume's like very strict empiricism and stuff like that to argue for Christianity. In the sense that like you can use analytical philosophy to destroy itself, which is like what he's doing with like Bertrand Russell and stuff, is that he's just like destroying the analytical philosophy with analytical philosophy. And like that is so beautiful to me, because he's basically saying like treating the gospels as if their analytical philosophy is just like a complete misunderstanding of how language actually works. He like brings it all back to the philosophy of language, which is really the philosophy of the logos, right? Which is really ultimately philology. So I think he was like performing a very necessary task in that. I love that he famously wielded a fire poker at Karl Popper. He threatened to kill him with a fire poker, and people always use that as an example of Wittgenstein being like not cool or like, you know, being abusive or in some way. But I think of it as heroic.
Yeah, it's kind of like the bell curve meme, right? You go so far on a certain side of it, and I think Wittgenstein's obviously very high IQ, that you come back all the way back around, right? Or what people would say is come back all the way around.
Yeah, he comes like basically he's just saying like, you know, like a lot of these Christians understand something that like you'll never understand, like because you are like closing yourself off into this like diminutive language game of analytical philosophy, and so you're like actively warring against being having any truths outside of that domain being revealed to you. So I don't know. I love Wittgenstein. My wife is like was a big like Wittgenstein scholar. She has like Wittgensteinian apostolic succession, so I know quite a bit about Wittgenstein.
And have you also talked about like Girard, or I haven't really heard any of you commenting on that?
I mean, Girard's okay. I mean, I just kind of like try to resist the kind of meme philosophers that get pushed a lot, like Girard. You know, there's actually a street named Girard Street that Peter Thiel named in San Francisco, which is right by Fort Mason, which is right by where the Whole Earth catalog was written and stuff. So like this type of like the whole mimetic conflict theory and stuff like that Girard talks about, like all Girard is saying is that all of this is already existing and being described in poetry and literature for forever. And it has been, obviously, like the whole concept of like mimetic desire or or questions of mimesis and things like that. It's not like something he revealed. He's not like, people act like, oh my God, he figured all this out. But he was just saying like this, that you can just point to this problem and how it's described. Like all he is writing about Shakespeare, the Bible, like he's just pointing people to these books. And I don't like it when people point to the guy who points to things instead of pointing to the things that he pointed at. So it's like, yeah, read Girard, but of course, first read the Bible. Like first actually understand the things that he's talking about, because he's just a commentator on other things. So I always try to push for that. Like, don't like people often put the cart before the horse, and they're reading like these philosophers of more contemporary ages who are really just commentators upon the discourse of philosophy and literature and poetry that's been ongoing for millennia. And if you're not going to engage with that whole millennia's long, like the wide panoply and panorama of these texts and things, then you're like, you don't even know in what ways you're misunderstanding things yet. That's like, I don't know. It's like people reading Nietzsche, but they haven't read Byron. And it's like, why are you even reading Nietzsche? Like, you haven't read Shakespeare and you're reading Nietzsche. It's like just bad taste.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like I found reading some of his stuff helped me like get Christianity a lot more, or provided like a lot of context to it. But yeah, you probably need to read the Bible first.
Yeah, I mean, you can read it all at the same time, or you can go back and forth. You could start with Girard, and if he gets you to read the Bible, that's good, and then you can go actually understand what he's saying and things like that. But I'm all about the foundation, like building, because people are kind of groundless today, and they kind of, enter into this from kind of nowhere, and they don't really know where to start. Everyone's always asking like, where do you start or whatever, but you should start pretty far back. I think you should build up a kind of understanding of antiquity, and then an understanding of like medieval, and then an understanding of like modernity. And you should kind of understand the continuity that brings us to the present moment, instead of just like starting kind of haphazardly inserting yourself into random parts of the past. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I think part of the problem of being an autodidact is like if you did all this in school, which I like, you can there's kind of a syllabus and like a little bit of like a momentum. But if you're doing like an autodidact, I feel like it's easier. Like you want to give yourself all of those momentum.
Syllabuses yourself. So, see, I think that's cope, because you can look up all of the syllabuses for these survey courses, for like Great Books programs, for what books were taught when or whatever. You can look all this up for free. It's all out there for you, and all of those texts you can go read for free. So like this idea, I think this idea that like, oh, the classroom environment makes it easier to do this. It's like, really, well, you're basically just saying that you had free time, and then you were also like being disciplined in the sense that there was some outside force who was kind of compelling you to at least pretend to engage with these things. Most of the people aren't even engaging with them. Like, if you're the type of person who needs a threat in order to read a book, like maybe don't even read the books. I think if you're not like enjoying the process of learning, then you're probably not doing the right thing.
No, it's. I guess I just meant if you're autodidact, you usually start maybe with like a meme philosopher and then work your way backwards. But that's all I was getting at.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's just true of like real philosophers or people these days who go into the field and stuff. Like they're often not like there'll be people who are like just doing analytical philosophy puzzles, and they're like, oh yeah, like what the Greeks called philosophy isn't real philosophy. Real philosophy begins with like Bertrand Russell or something.
Actually, just one last thing, and I gotta go. But I remember you and KB way back when on Tech Wars talking about A Suicide Note by Michael Heisman. I was wondering if you had any like thoughts on that, or like it's. So I was rereading. It's very interesting. I actually think there's a lot of good, seemingly new information in there. I'm kind of. It seems like no one really else really talks about him or knows about him, or
yeah, no one really remembers.
But I just wanted to like, what are your thoughts on that? Still, I mean, do you still think it's like interesting, like worth looking into, or do you think it's all like kind of like derivative stuff, or what?
I think that his conclusions, like ultimately, like it's kind of like a really tragic story because like he's like this is an experiment in nihilism, and he like comes up with this kind of like total despair cosmos where we're building the Antichrist computer machine, and we should just kill ourselves, and so that's what he does. He actually just kills himself. But a lot of his like writing on like the dialectic of like Cavaliers and Puritans and like kind of tracking that and stuff like the conflicts in Northwest Europe through history is definitely really interesting, worth looking into. Some of the stuff like him writing about Jesus as being like the son of a Roman centurion and things like that is pretty interesting. I think he has some good stuff in there.
Yeah, whenever I tell people to read, I always say skip the first, like the suicide part, and just once you get into it, it's actually pretty interesting.
That part's all cope, and like I think that part's all like him trying to deal with the fact that he put all this effort into this like survey and things, and then there's ultimately no audience for it. Like he used to work at a bookstore that I frequented quite a bit in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and so he's just like, if you think of him as like a kind of bookish guy, like very serious, but like about reading all of these books, like he's working out of a used bookshop or whatever, and he's just kind of lonely. And he doesn't have anyone to talk to about all these things. Like if he had just not killed himself and he stuck around, he probably would be in these circles on Twitter. He probably wouldn't have felt so alone. So that's really the tragedy.
Yeah, because he wrote in like 2011 and 12, and like you can tell that he's kind of center left, but he talks about a lot of stuff that is now verboten for those kind of people to talk about. So maybe he had to kind of write it at the right time, or maybe it would have just become like online right.
That's what I think.
But like, yeah,
I think like I can understand that kind of despair because honestly, things like culturally seemed like they were going like completely like back then, like 2010, 2011, second term Obama. It was like wow, like everything is just rapidly getting worse and worse. And now that everyone's kind of accepted that things are rapidly getting worse and worse, and like we can talk about how and why like no one's denying that things are getting worse and worse. Well, I feel like there's like a whole like weight off of trying to pretend that we're living in this like age of progress where things keep getting better. That was really the most tyrannical aspect of it, was to be like pessimistic in any way was verboten, like very much socially not okay.
Yeah, and I wonder if he, obviously like very upsetting that he killed himself, but I wonder if he was alive, he maybe would have like not published a 2,000 page, like maybe would have turned this into 3 or 4 books, but I guess now we get it all in one shot, one manuscript.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't like farm for Twitter content. It's kind of more pure in a sense, right? Versus like,
I don't know,
intellectual quote unquote.
I guess I find like suicides in general to me, like people who commit suicide is kind of like I kind of feel as if like they're invalidating everything that they've done, if that makes sense. Where it's kind of like, okay, so it all ended there, and you just killed yourself, and I don't know. I don't see like any heroism in it really, or like I see the exact opposite, where it's kind of like that's a failure.
No, that's fair. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Peace. All right, we got no. I'm going to add you. What's up? What can I do for you? You've got Vegeta flipping me off. Is that the avatar here? What can I do for you? No.
Hi. So I just started reading V by Pension, and I wanted to ask you, like, what's your favorite chapter and what's your take behind it?
Oh man, that's like a big question. Probably the part that sticks in mind with, like, I mean, there's a lot of parts that I can think of. I read V, last time I read V was maybe like 7 years ago, so it's not like as fresh in my mind. But the alligator, the crocodile alligator hunt in the sewers, that part's really good. And the part I like the most probably is the part that takes place in like Victorian Egypt, Victorian era, like Egypt, where they're talking about like alchemy and like automata and things like that. That part I have gone back to again and again. That's probably my favorite parts. V, I don't know, it's a really great book. It's I always say that about V. When Thomas Pynchon first put it out, people thought it was a J.D. Salinger book under a pseudonym, and that's like the only time where you could possibly believe that stylistically. But that's one interesting thing about it.
Uh-huh. Like I really appreciate how I mean it's so confusing, the stencil chapters especially. Like right now I just completed the one which they're in Italy and they're trying to steal the birth of Venus. It's so fucking hilarious.
Yeah, Thomas Pynchon's really funny and fun, and that's one thing I think is never like, when people are like, "Oh, Gravity's Rainbow, big serious white male books or whatever," is they never they never understand that it's like a giant like comic book, and that Pynchon is like really funny, and that the characters are really funny, and the situations are really funny, and that it's like has a deep comedic element to it, which is what makes it so good. It's not just like this like dour or cynical thing or whatever, but it's like a very like ebullient and like joyful thing to read Thomas Pynchon books. It's like fun. It's like a good like summer day activity. You're laying around, you're like laughing at a book. Like when a book makes you laugh, that's like one of the hardest things to do, is to write a really funny book. Like a book that makes you laugh out loud is a treasure.
Definitely.
Anything else I can do for you?
Like it's just that when I read the chapters by stencil especially, there is this whole spy undercurrent. I do not have an hermeneutic to read that part. What is it Pynchon is trying to say, or is it just meaningless? The recurrence of
Well, you'll see. I don't want to ruin it for you, but like it's the V, right? If you look at this, it's like two lines connecting, right? Two lines, like two things like diverging or whatever. So it's like in a kind of meta sense, it's about looking for the point upon which the two lines converge. So there's like these two narratives, and it's trying to you're trying to find the point upon which they converge, so that you can put together the whole story. Because it's not going to be written out for you. Like what that whole book is actually about is like you have to discover the point, if that makes sense, at the end.
Okay. I do remember reading it way back
V.
when, but of course, like I was not that erudite to even grasp most of it. But yeah, thanks, man.
For sure, man. All right. Anyone? Can I do anything for anyone? Otherwise, I'm probably gonna dip. I'll just check the comments, see if anyone has anything on here. This chat is clear pilled. Clear pilled. I haven't heard that in a long time. Oh, we got some Mage and Falstaff have supplied some links to Dante translations, which they're recommending. Those are good. Okay, cool. We've got Ghost of Cleaver. What can I do for you? Hey, baby.
Yo.
Ghost, you're on.
Hello.
What can I do for you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up,
How
man?
you doing, Logo Man? I just thought I'd say that
I'm doing good.
it's an absolute blessing to see how you've come as a father in the recent few couple months you've been posting. I don't know when she was.
It's been the best thing I've ever done.
I don't know when she was born, but or he, she, or I'm not too sure. I don't know when they were born, but I just think it's fantastic, this new approach you've had, and it really cements the fact of what being a father actually entails in a person, and a lot of people don't actually realize that until they experience it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's kind of like a psychological shift. I mean, you think a lot
Exactly.
less about yourself and stuff, and like it's been great for me because I hate having to care about myself. So I'm glad I can care
Well, that's it.
so much
That's it.
about someone else.
That's it exactly, man. My child recently turned 4. My son is an absolute blessing. Best thing I've ever had. Lovely, intelligent little guy. Just put him down to sleep. I'm from Scotland myself. I've just put him down.
Oh, I could tell.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I've just put him down to sleep, and it's just an absolute blessing. It completely shifted my mindset, brought me on to new thoughts and things that I'd never thought possible before. So just thought
Oh
I'd just
yeah,
give you a shout, man, just to say that your new posts are all just they're perfect, and
yeah.
you know why, and I know why, as a dad gang.
Dad gang for sure. Dad gang.
No,
Dad gang is gonna bring it all back. Dad gang is the future.
that is it, man. It's the only way. It is the only future. Without Dad Gang, what do you have? You have nothing.
What do you have? Nothing. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's been great. I've been feeling better. Like, I don't know, my life is one of continual improvement. Like, I didn't have a very happy childhood.
Yeah.
So whenever people in like high school or like even like younger when I was a kid and they'd be like, "Oh, these are the best times of your life," etc. I'd be like, "Oh, fuck, like holy shit, things are going to suck then
Yeah.
if this is the best that it gets."
Uh-huh.
But really my life keeps getting better. Like I'm happier now than
That's
I ever have been.
that's it, man. I think the people that continue with that sort of preach are the ones that are stuck in the nostalgic Disney frame set. If you
And
get
they're
me.
miserable. They
Yeah,
become so miserable as they
yeah.
get
And
older.
and what do they have? They have this screen. You know,
And they've got a
the,
bunch of collectibles.
the only light they have in their lives is literally a television screen for the most part.
Oh man, yeah, many such cases
Many such
flashing through my
cases.
mind. Yeah, it's sad. I think it's sad that so many like people don't have like I don't know access to babies in the sense that like um because less and less people have kids now and like they're just less around and you have so many like antagonism against like having kids around or like people are like oh like I don't
Yeah.
want to deal with babies or whatever like there's so much like antinatalism and stuff that really does like a disservice to like other people around because like one of the nice things is like I got my baby here and other people get to appreciate it too like
Exactly.
other like it brings joy to other people like people and it's also like like I don't want gifts for myself but it's like oh if you want to do something for the baby that would be very nice things like that like
And that's one thing I can completely relate to, because myself, I didn't have my first my child until I was 27, and I lived a very self-driven lifestyle, and it wasn't until that moment that I actually thought, shit, damn, like the people that have told me all these lies about having your best life at this certain time was actually a load of shit. It's actually the bringing on of new life that is really the
yeah I
the life.
agree yeah imagine like acting like oh like you going out and like getting drunk every night at some fucking like neoliberal ass bar and
Well,
going back
that's
to
it.
your
Yeah,
apartment and
yeah.
then just like watching YouTube videos into a stupor and then waking up to go work at a job you hate. It's like where is the joy in your life there? But it's like if you did all those things and like you at least had a kid to come home to or something, you were taking like
A
it would at least
hundred
redeem
percent,
it
my
in
man.
some sense.
Yep, exactly. Like, you don't really appreciate it until it comes. And I think what you were saying earlier about the fact that less people are having kids, so there's less access to people just being around children in general, is also like a factor that plays into the increasing acceleration of antinatalism itself.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But Dad Gang, once more, we're gonna bring it all back.
Bad
Thanks for coming
gang.
on, man. Dad Gang.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate it, man. Cheers for the shout. Big
Cheers,
ups.
bro.
All the best.
And got Law of Hunter Gracchus. What can I do for you? Ricky Mendez. I have you on all the time, so I'll let you on if we run out of people, but I've talked to you so many times. So Law of Gracchus, or whatever your name is. What can I do for you? You're on, so. Or not. Okay. They dropped. All right, Ricky. You win. Oh, wait. We got Wham, I'll add too.
Oh, what's up, man? Howdy doody?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm just taking care of my baby here, talking to y'all.
God bless, man. I had a question about like I'm getting really big into economic circuits and stuff like that for and especially since I've been reading like in tandem with the I've been just talking to like just everyone. I go to gun stores and I talk to people with the and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I love seeing I'm in the Midwest, so I'm just like living out here.
Nice.
So I want to talk about like, so how like the MCM circuit with like feudalism and how like I wanted to like maybe like even before that, is there like, do you know if there's structures for before like because as you said, like in the Hume, the most positivistic,
In like a Marxist
well,
sense?
in the even any form of like because I was thinking in the sense of like maybe like instead of having money, it's more like honor and stuff like that. Of
See, I think that's actually not really true, because I think it all is just cows.
yeah. So
Like, it's really
well, I
cows.
mean
It's
in the
really
sense of
cows.
like
Like,
that cows
what's honor?
are
What's
cows the
honor?
commodity?
It's your titles. Your titles to. Well, cows are the first form of capital,
Uh-huh.
because that's the first form of capital, is like livestock,
So
because like they're an investment, right? And they're like you can trade them, like like you pay your bride price and things like that with cows. Like your offerings to the temple for your sins would be in like some form of livestock that you're taking care of, or or that you can get. If you're going back to like hunter gatherer economies, I don't know. It's like hard. There's not really
yeah,
much
that's the
record
main
for
thing.
that.
Yeah, because that's I mean, just like I'm not sure to like make it more abstract, because I'm trying to make it in the sense of like seeing how far the further back you go, like the maybe it could tell us more about the future and how we like maybe the new economic, maybe the communist. Because I was thinking about like how like socialism is the CMC ontology and whatnot, and
I think like you could say that we're trying to build up. Like, there's some speculation regarding like hunter gatherer economies. If you read Graeber, like On Deck,
yeah,
I think
no,
goes into
this
some
this is
extent.
yeah, I'm still in this tradition, so I'm saying with the
Yeah.
CMC ontology, like there's like this whatever, like a primitive socialism, or like a lower stage of socialism or something like that.
Yeah,
But I'm
well, you know how Marshall McLuhan says that like under electric conditions we've like returned. It's like Finnegan's
yeah.
Wake also, where we kind of returned to like these antique, or like pre-modern life forms, like really like old ancient life forms. So I think that like communism really is the return to like a palace economy
Yeah,
with like hyper abundance.
so to put
So that would mean that like we have this massive surplus, we have this massive commonwealth of goods, and then everyone also can like you can hunt or gather like as you may, like on top of that, but it's not going to be for
that's a good.
subsistence, but kind of
It's already
for
like
your own
I say
desires.
it's like an a priori almost understanding, because like the way I put this in the most positivistic, like like what I'm trying to my spin on this is like so like the difference between like a Leninist difference between socialism and communism with the circuits, like using the circuits to explain it. I'm not sure if it's been expanded upon to the sense of like maybe the socialism as a CMC ontology. Okay, so okay. Let me state this premise first with them. You know how like Marx says like inside even in the manifesto, that capitalism is revolutionary compared to feudalism because of like
yeah
and whatnot, because the MCM turns into an MCM prime and whatnot.
yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe in the sense of maybe the socialism turning into communism, maybe it's a CMC to a CMC prime, to where the commodity is primed or
Write it up,
quantified, or
dude.
yes,
Write
that's
it up.
yeah,
Send it
that's
to
what I
me.
want to
I'll
write
tell you
about.
what I think. But
Yeah,
that's too much to talk about on this right
yeah,
now. That
that's all
sounds
I wanted
interesting
to
to me.
prod you about. So yeah, I'll definitely send you more of my thesis, and also with the savage and sage and the master and slave and stuff like that. With the I could more and stuff.
That
But yeah,
sounds good to me. It sounds interesting to me. It's kind of I'll see like how you expand on that, but it sounds promising, or a promising means of investigation. I think.
yeah. I mean, like, because like this is what Leibniz wanted, like a mass translation project and stuff like that. And I'm ready. I also want to like get some stuff from Alibaba and stuff like that, and start trading them on with like just getting a mass coveralls for just like people for even like the Communist Party and stuff like that. I just gladly like gift that to people and like put little Kalashnikov classics. I got some pretty avant-garde stuff and like
Nice.
a fashion.
We're gonna need it because they're taking down the Internet Archive, man. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna need it. We're gonna need our own little invisible
Network.
college here.
Yeah, so I'll be in the works with you. I'll definitely DM you more about this stuff, and yeah.
Nice. All right, I got a Wham on here too. So Wham or Wham, do you wanna say anything? Thanks for coming on, Ricky. Let me know when you finish that, or you get more done on that. But Wham, what can I do for you?
Hi, Logo. I
What's
just
up?
had a question regarding your journey to Christianity, because I
Sure.
was raised in the church, and I was
Which one?
I was raised Protestant and Baptist churches.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was very devout for a very long time, but I started questioning in high school, and I've gone through like a variety of transformations since. And so yeah, I'm just interested in your journey through spirituality and what brought you to the belief you
So
have.
I was in a Catholic family. You know, I was raised Catholic, like sent to Sunday school and catechized, and I did my communion. But I was a big troublemaker in there, to the consternation of a lot of people in my family. I got kicked out of two different churches for questioning things and asking too many questions, really, as a child. Um, and I constantly, my big thing was like, why don't we get to read the Bible in Sunday school? And I was always like, why aren't we reading the Bible? Because we were like, they give you, I don't know if you know how like Catholic catechism works, but they give you these like elementary school textbook style things, like going to the church, and they'll have like wheelchair Jimmy tell you how to do a rosary and things like that. And it's literally just like feels the exact same as public school. It's like done in the same style. And
Yeah.
I was just really opposed to it. I was like big atheist kid, being like, okay, well, this is clearly all bullshit. Like, you know, I hate all of this. Like, this is completely inimical to my fucking being. Like, this idea that I have to go do schoolwork on Sunday mornings and sit through all this shit that no one really cares about. Because I don't know, it's kind of like I think a lot of the people who go to church, whatever church it might be, are doing so kind of out of like a maintaining of appearances, and like within familial units and within like a, you know, your local community or whatever. Like you're the type of people who go, so you have to go, and like not going would be a transgression of some sort of community norm or whatever.
Right.
But I just didn't, like, you know, I'm like a person, I care about principles and things like that. And it's like, you know, I'm reading like tons of folklore and mythology. I was always into like folklore and mythology and stuff. And I was always like, isn't this just more folklore and mythology? Like, what's so distinct about this? Like, why is this unique in any way? And, you know, when you're like 9 to 12 years old, asking this of like the volunteer, like fucking Sunday moms or whatever, who are in charge of your CCD class, they just tell you to shut up, you know, like they hate it. Like they don't want to talk about theology and shit, because they don't, to them, it's just about feeling good and being involved,
Yeah.
you know, and that's really all that it's about. And I didn't give a fuck about feeling good and being involved, because I didn't like being involved, and it didn't make me feel good. So I was pretty anti-Christian, very much so. Like I remember like making other kids atheists when I was like in elementary school, because I'd be like, there's no God. Like, what are you talking about? This is like dumb. Because like,
Right.
I remember this one kid who was like, he was like from a more fundamentalist family. And he was like, I was doing like, you know, very edgelord atheist stuff. I'd be like, okay, if there's a God, why don't you tell it, like, then can he stop this pencil from falling like out of my hand onto the ground? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And I'd drop it and it would like hit the ground. I'd be like, okay, so like, how do you get God to stop a pencil from falling out of the ground? Like, what can he actually do? And then they would just be like, oh, blasphemy, heretic, you know, like get mad at me and stuff. And so I always just thought it was funny that like these people, I was like, why do these like adults and things, like, why are they like LARPing basically, you know,
Right.
like, because it just seemed ridiculous to me. And really the way that I got more interested in it, so like, you know, I went down more the like esoteric path, and like, you know, I'm a little teenage edgelord reading, you know, the black magic stuff, and, you know, like esoteric, like, you know, the like Gnostic texts and things like that.
Cool.
And you know, the traditions and like paganism and all these other sorts of things. I'm always fascinated by religion and like religious traditions and scriptures and various you know, the perennial philosophy, etc. That was always what I was interested in. So I kept doing that. But then, like, you know, the more I had contact with Christian stuff, I'd just be like, stuff is just so much better than the other stuff. You know, like you can read a bunch of Buddhist stuff and a bunch of all these other things, but there's just something that like sticks with like Christianity, in my opinion, in a way, or like it's like seems to me like the most complicated one, or like the one that's like the most mysterious in some ways, and like is like constantly and has this like kind of you kind of feel like it's always unfolding to you like new things. So it's just been like a perpetual process of me like continue, like just being stuck in thinking about it. Like I can't not do it. Like I don't know when it happened, or there's like a few moments where like in my like where like something I'd like read in like the Christian tradition like really just struck me as true in a way that other types of things didn't, and like it being applicable to my daily life, even like, you know, my dealings with people, where it just became like, you know, like I at a certain point I was just like, I felt like I was like coming out of the closet because I've been an atheist for so long, to be like, oh, I'm like a Christian, I take this seriously. So in some ways I thought that would help me like reintegrate with like the Catholic side of my family, who ostensibly care about all this stuff. But then you realize like they don't know anything about it, and they don't care about any of it at all, and what they actually believe has nothing to do with any of it, you know what I mean? And so then they'd get all upset about that, about the fact that I'm like actually like, I'm like, no, I like fucking love Jesus. And they like think I'm like being ironic or something because they know me as being like the teenage atheist or whatever.
Right.
And so then I felt like it just kind of like revealed that there was like not that like none of it was authentic in the first place. And so then I'm like, actually, me being a little teenage atheist, like I was being Christ-like. Like actually, like my concern was like for the truth at the whole time. Like, and like I was like going up to the Pharisees and being like, you know what I mean? I was arguing with the Pharisees in church like Jesus did, and like all of a sudden it kind of opened up to me even more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like I really do appreciate Christianity and the story of Christ. Like people like Jung have talked about how it can be viewed as a sort of the sacrifice of the self to the world, and that we all have to take up this cross. That this is our own living is in a way our own, and the sacrifices we make is our own sort of like cross that we have to bear. And so there's that sort of like resonance and the injustice of the world. I mean, being so evident, having some sort of metaphysics to sort of justify that conflict and give some sense of security for me is very intriguing. But I still feel like I'm in this space where like I don't know how I can say one tradition has the capital T truth. Right.
Well, so to me, it's like, well, like how, like who can best explain Jesus is like like the end of the day, like we're going to have like a worldview or criterion for like how to read these things or whatever. It's like, okay, so who is Jesus? What happened there? And it's like that you're ultimately going to have to explain this, like whatever tradition you're in, even if you're like a Hindu or whatever, you're like, they're going to have to explain Jesus in some way. Maybe they'll say like, well, Jesus actually was inducted into like Indian Brahmic wisdom or something in his travels in his youth. And that's really the explanation, is that he's really just like a Brahmin or something like that, right? But like everyone, even the Muslims, like everyone has some explanation for what happened there, and they have to. So then it's like, what is the one that's like true? Like, what is the truth about Jesus?
Right.
Is like the biggest question in the world. Like people are killing each other over this, and they have been for forever. But so it's like, I think that's like the main question, is like what, like it's like this riddle. It's like the stone that the builders rejected, but or however all the ways in which Christ describes himself. But it's this thing that exists like in history that everyone has to deal with, that has completely altered the entirety of like humanity irrevocably in a way that we can't go back from it, no matter what, no matter how much people try.
Right.
And it's like, to explain that is like so difficult, and like everyone's trying to explain it in different ways, but like the ways in which they try to explain it also then enter into like a relationship with Jesus, right? Where it's like, well, the way you're explaining him isn't exactly the way that he explained himself. So where's what's the difference between these things? And that's where I think you'd find the truth, is like what actually happened there, like and like what was it? What do you think? Like, what do you think it was? Do you think Jesus was real? Like, what do you think? What do you think about it?
I believe there was a historical man named Jesus. And the thing is, like, it's just I'm not sure. I'm not sure what historically reliable source you can go to, because like I've done very like I'll say minimal reading on this stuff.
What do you mean by reliable?
Like something you can read and say like, okay, I have this perspective now. I know where it's coming from, and I can gauge it against the validity of other perspectives. Like one that is, if it,
One that has authority.
yeah, I mean one that in a contrasting setting would best the other one. One, because like one of the things for me is that it's hard to find sources that are people that I can continually go back to and say like, okay, I read this book and now I feel like I've genuinely learned something.
Have you read the Bible?
I've read some of the Bible. I haven't read all of it. No.
Read the whole thing. Like that's the source that you're looking for. You're looking for that, because it's like, what does Jesus say when he's like doing this? He points to books in the Bible,
Right.
right? Like he's quoting from the book itself. So then, like, okay, when he says that, go read the context of that quote. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, go read that whole book that he's referencing, and then it's like, okay, so like that is the book you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like if you want it, you can devote your entire life to reading that book. Many have, many will for a long time.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's that there's that much to it, and it's an endless. Like you can spend literally your entire life reading that book. and all of the commentaries on it, and it's like it's unparalleled to anything else.
Right.
So that's why I'm like kind of a scriptural guy. Like, you know, I care more about the scripture than the tradition, because the tradition to me is just like, you know, commentary
Right.
on this thing that exists,
Right.
like undeniably, like the text is there, you know, like, and you're saying like one perspective, but what the Bible doesn't like one perspective. It doesn't write from one perspective. It's about the juxtaposition of perspectives. Like even like, you know, the testimony of Jesus, you got four gospels.
Mhm.
You got four gospels, and they're not all the same. Like there are differences between them, and they're coming from different perspectives. And there's been tons of written about that. So it's really like I think you're looking for a type of finality, perhaps,
Yeah,
like a kind of
like a
final
like a sort
finality.
of
But the world doesn't have that.
right. That's the kicker.
You have to be open to the unfolding of the truth, which is part of like what faith is.
Right.
Is to not need that like exact finality, but to like trust. Like it's about faith, you know. It's like when you have faith, it means that you trust that things will be given to you when you need them, but not like instantaneously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm saying like read with faith, like read, you know what I mean? Like even if you're like you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know what this means yet. Trust that you will eventually.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Thank you, Logo.
That's like the beginning. You'll find that like as you come to understand, that is itself like the conversion that you would experience. Is that it'll strike you in a way where it becomes just undeniable. It's just how you see things, because it's like your engagement with it is what the whole point is. Like your engagement with the tradition, with the scripture, your meditation on it, your reading of it perpetually, or like, you know, or trying to learn, etc. Like it will change your like the way you think in a way that you couldn't know before you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something I definitely gotta get back into.
Yeah, I mean, there's millions of resources. One thing I would recommend, I guess, if you want to have like a one way that I think is really fruitful way to read it, and it makes it more enjoyable on like a literary level, I suppose, like a poetic level, is Northrop Frye's lectures on the Bible. I believe there's 25 of them. You can watch all of them on YouTube for free, and that's like that it. Those are entertaining enough on their own, but
Okay.
that's one way that might make it feel less like a kind of labor, like going into reading the Bible, like, okay, time to go do my homework, and something that's more like a living,
Right.
breathing, like enjoyable thing, like, you know, like in the way that you would read, you know, a comic book or something.
Right. Something more alive. A Boolean, like
Yeah,
you said.
a Boolean. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. The scripture is a Boolean constantly. I'm constantly looking at my Bible, and because I'll just be like, oh yes, it brings. I don't know if it does. It should bring you joy to read.
Right. Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you for the advice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. I assume that advice will help some others too. So it helps me, like you trying to help yourself, me trying to help you, helps other people too, who are just around. And that's what's nice about doing stuff like this.
Hey,
So have a good one, man.
appreciate it.
I've got Krim Shael. What's up? Krim Shael. What does that mean?
Oh,
L.
it's Krim
L is God. So
it's a pet name, part of something called like Zuko's Triangle to make my name more globally accessible. But I actually don't have a lot of time. I'm actually headed back to work. But I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this and bless you. And I actually just wanted to ask, is this something you do regularly?
I was doing them regularly a couple of months ago, and then I was like, I don't know, I had a pretty rough fucking January, February. It was pretty rough for me. So I don't know if I'm going to be getting back more into doing these. I know some people like them. People seem to enjoy them. I don't know. Like I have a hard time under knowing like what it is people find valuable in what I do. So I try to just assume that like there are people who value like whatever I'm doing. So, I mean, you value this. Like I'm literally just sitting here like on my mattress. My baby is asleep on me right now.
Yeah.
And like I don't know what else I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. I could be like reading or something, I guess, but this is just I'm just wasting my time, frankly.
I don't think you're wasting your
But
time. I think
hopefully
you're
it's used.
educating a lot of
Well,
people.
I mean it in the most like ebullient way of wasting my time, like a glorified waste of time.
Yeah, I think your perspective is really refreshing, and I think it's needed in a time like this with the decline of faith. So I'm pretty thankful for it. I actually have to get back to work, but yeah, I'd love to hear you speak again. So you should keep doing this.
All right, man. Well, thanks for showing up. Peace out.
Um, and Dante Reedy, you are up. What can I do for you?
Hello. Oh,
Hey,
is this
what's
working?
up?
Hey, Logo. Thanks so much for doing this. I was actually just watching the Succession episode for most of the stream, but just finished it. Agreed with your thread entirely. Probably gonna watch it again tonight with my friends, but
Yeah,
but
it's so good. I'm gonna rewatch it
yeah,
probably today
yeah,
too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
watched it last night.
I had a question. So I caught the tail end of your thing, your talk with that other guy. I was just wondering, I know you studied Russian at NYU, and naturally with that, I was just curious, did you ever have like an ortho bro or ortho curious phase in that time? In that
Absolutely,
transition?
dude. Absolutely. There was I just
Ooh.
scared her. I was too buoyed.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby. You're okay. You're okay. She started to get scared by like sudden noises
Oh,
sometimes,
yeah.
which is new.
Yeah.
She gets yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're okay. I didn't mean to be loud. Yeah, I definitely had an ortho phase. I mean, I still like Orthodox people. Like, I don't know. I like a lot of Orthodox theology and stuff. But I straight up like one time, sometimes in my like despair, I was like, looking up like flights to Mount Athos, and I was like, I'm just gonna disappear.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would tell my wife that I'd be like, if I didn't have you and like my daughter, I'd probably be a fucking monk somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like probably what I would have done.
Yeah. Do you partake in like the ascetic practices of like Lent fasting and stuff, or are you at least interested in the discipline that instills?
I kind of fast just as my lifestyle.
Mhm.
Like I actually I kind of do like I've discovered what intermittent
Yeah,
fasting
yeah,
is.
yeah.
I realized I was doing that just my entire life without knowing it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a pretty ascetic person.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like I
I
don't
get that.
really like in general. But I don't really do like a prescribed ritual practice of it. Like I don't like observe like a kind of prescribed form of fasting or anything like that. I just I do try to be fairly monastic in my own life, but that's kind of
Yeah.
just how I am also as a
Yeah,
person.
yeah. I had one kind of geopolitics question for you, and then I'll let you get back to baby. But I don't know if you've I've seen a couple of your stuff with Alexander Bard from the old BTR days.
Oh, geez,
I know you two were not the most amicable in those discussions, but
I don't like that guy. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. But I was just wondering, like, where do you stand on his specific? Because you talk about like the next 50 years, the next 100 years. I kind of find myself agreeing with him that the Abrahamic faiths will just sort of lose appeal, and the next 50 to 100 years will be like
I think that's wishful thinking.
Hinduism being the sort of the it religion over the next 50, and then maybe after that Zoroastrianism and Taoism, especially coming to Europe. I do kind of agree with him that Islam will sort of lose relevance, even though there's going to be.
I don't think so.
Well, after living in Jordan for 6 months, I kind of agree with him in that sense, because like there's never going to be a Muslim Modi, and I think as nationalism becomes more pervasive throughout the world, it's gonna collapse against.
We don't have nationalism.
Well,
I don't think I don't think that's. I think that's like not correct, because what we're seeing more is in like multipolarity is more like civilizational states, and that the age of nationalism was the age of the 19th century. Like there hasn't been nations in a real sense, in a long time. We have like massive geopolitical empires, and that's like the reality of the times. I don't see like a return to nationalism. I think that Bard, when he's talking about the decline of Abrahamic faiths, etc., that's entirely his own wish fulfillment. Like that. Okay, tell the Israelis and the Palestinians they're going to see a decline in Abrahamic faith. They're going to like come together under some type of ecumenical liberalism or something. Like it's just not. I don't see that happening.
Well, no. But what Bard would say to that is like Bard would disaggregate Judaism from that Columbine essentially because it's able to.
Judaism wouldn't be one of the Abrahamic faiths. You see what I'm saying?
But yeah.
Makes
But
sense.
it is a nationalism in its own sense, to a certain extent that's not as universalistic as Islamic Christianity purports to be, and sort of as we live in that sort of collapsing universalism, he says Judaism is properly insulated from that, whereas Islamic Christianity won't be.
I don't think we're seeing a collapsing universalism. What I think we're seeing is a new definition of universalism. That's what the multipolarity represents, where instead of it being unity as unity, it's unity as multiplicity. So I don't really think that there's a collapsing universalism. I think like a more authentic universalism is actually being produced.
But okay, so on that note, back to my original point, do you think like we're going to see an Islamic Renaissance? Because you look at like Erdogan, you look at Pakistan currently.
We'll
right
see what
now.
the Saudis are doing.
Well, that's only like what 10 million people. I'm talking like these bigger projects that were like at the head of the 2010s, like the AKP. They're sort of collapsing right now. Pakistan's the same thing. Like it was the first.
You're talking about places that are like the fringes of the American empire, like Pakistan.
How is
like
Pakistan?
a very because do you know like our involvement in Pakistan for decades and decades and decades, like us funding things, their military, their government.
To that point, I'm not trying to be super combative, but like we've also intervened in Indian politics too, and they've been able to manage to build a system that's insulated from that to the same extent that Pakistan hasn't been.
Okay. Well, I think like if you're looking for like the two hubs of Islam, it's like Saudi Arabia and Iran.
But like even Iran, like I don't know if I trust the polling, but you do see more people less willing to identify. Like if you look at the Iran, I know the Iranian American diaspora is like not the best example, but like
that's like literally the worst selection bias. Yeah.
But it is true that like only a third of it's the only Middle Eastern diaspora. We're only around a third or less than a third like voluntarily identifies as Muslim. So that's kind of indicative of a larger trend, I think, of just like general instability of that.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's more likely that we see a revival of religions than we see their decimation or something, or their replacement with something.
I agree, but I think it's going to be like a dharmic. I think it's going to be like not hippie type of dharmic stuff, but like authentic.
Like eugenics.
Yeah, well,
is what you mean.
No. I think like
that's what that means, but
possibly. But I think like Modi and people like that.
Literally what it means, though.
Yeah.
I think that you're kind of right in the sense that like in the West, like we're seeing like a kind of move towards just like pure unabashed eugenics as like the kind of like this worship of nature and things like that, which is like fundamentally kind of pagan.
Yeah.
But I think that we've already been in that for a while. And you could say that's accelerating to some degree, but at the same time, the counter force to that is also developing.
I would agree, essentially, because like, is that possibly why you think that like the Obama people, at least in the beginning, the Obama people and Fareed Zakaria and every sort of liberal press point was praising Modi in the 2014s, and then they sort of flipped, and now I think certain factions of the left have not a unique, but like especially like Demsocks, especially like they have a sort of unique hatred for Hinduism that I can't really pin down, but
well, they just want like a Hinduism with like woke characteristics or whatever, and they'd be totally down. Like, oh, this is like it's like cool and diverse or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
Is that why they're triggered by movies like RRR, which sort of
because it's like the reality of it isn't that it's this like subaltern like they ironically they wanted Hinduism to be more Christian than it is.
Interesting. Okay, well, this was a great combo, Logo. I was just wondering,
for sure.
Do you have any travel plan? Or that's probably
not really,
but yeah. Also, one more thing. do you think Alex Jones will ever make good on his promise to go to Russia in the next few years? And would you?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah.
That'd be cool though, but I don't think he will.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. One final point.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Dugan and Olavo de Carvalho's 350-page flame war, essentially their big treatise?
No.
You never did. Okay. I think you.
No, I read a little bit of Dugan a long time ago. I forgot which one, but he's okay.
No,
I don't know. I'm kind of averse to like the kind of like the style of like theory cell writing in that way. I don't know. Like it's like reading like Nick Land or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I don't know. I've read Kajev. I don't need this.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a very interesting debate, especially if you're talking about. I see a lot of the themes of what's like MAGA communism now. I see because like MAGA communism. Correct me if I'm right. It was sort of the prior iteration of that was what you called Ron Paul Maoism, which is
Yeah,
sort of,
I use it all interchangeable.
it's all interchangeable. Okay, I didn't really understand that. Well,
like people use it, but I've been doing this for forever. I've come up with a million terms for my. I call it a cowboy Bolshevism. Like people adopt the like things I've made up just to like for fun. But I don't take like labels that seriously.
Okay, that makes sense. Because but I remember sort of certain circuits of the infrared orbit were trying to make the claim that Bolsonaro was the same in this respect. And I always look back to that debate whereby Dugan actually is more sympathetic to the Latin American left and thinks that they are more nationalistic in a sense, which is sort of diversion from what De Carvalho would say, even though De Carvalho was based in the U.S. for most of his life and his intellectual career. So
yeah, I mean, like, you know, the problem with like the discourse machine and stuff here is that it's like there's so much like there's like literal capital attached to being able to like name a brand and then defend it, etc.
Yeah,
but I never really cared to do that.
Jackson
like,
Hinkel's
I am the opposite.
Yeah, I think Jackson
I like to do
Hinkel's
the opposite, like
the diametrical opposite of that, whereas he's sort of needs to latch on to every contrarian point.
Yeah, because you know I like Jackson. He's a nice guy and whatnot, but he's not novel. Like he's not producing new insights. Like he's just like a pundit, you know. And like most of his appeal is the fact that he looks like like a fucking American quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, like that's really what it is about. And so I think he's a nice guy. I've met him personally and stuff, and like I don't have any ill will against him or whatever. But you know, I'm not playing the same game. Like I can appreciate his game, but it's not the game I'm playing. You know, I don't want to build a movement and have to like manage it and like care about branding and stuff. If anything, like I'm like people call me a contrarian, but it's really just like I hate. I don't like herd dynamics. I always like if too many people are agreeing with me, I suddenly don't want them to agree with me anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Especially like I think now if you're maybe in 15, 20 years the circumstances will change, but I think organizing now, especially like in a place where I am, California, or even where you are, like it's kind of futile. So
yeah, it's completely futile. There's no point in doing it. All you're doing is like it's actually like sabotage in a way. Like you're like hey, come attack this group. Like that was like one of the stupidest things I ever did, and I shouldn't have done it. And I wish I could take it back. Is when I went to that conference in
Boston,
like Caleb Maupin and those other guys.
Yeah.
It was in Austin, and like that just put such a fucking target on my back for so many stupid shit, and it's just like it did nothing for me, and I felt like I was doing it kind of charitably, because like there's like nice people there who've been nice to me, and I was like, yeah, I'll go, and I wanted to meet Haas and Jackson because I get along with Haas and stuff. But it was ultimately like all it did was bad for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think honestly something like the after party for the Alex Jones documentary is a more like revolutionary organizing than an event like that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm like now I'm like a homebody. I'm busy. Like I don't have time for that shit anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks so much for your work. I really recommend you to anyone.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. yeah, I'll be sure to hop on soon in the future. Oh, I did have one more thing, one last thing. What are your thoughts on Bram Stoker, just generally, as a figure?
The writer of Dracula.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've actually read Dracula.
Really? I just finished.
I don't think I have.
I just
never
finished
did.
his work that he published prior to Dracula, entitled "The Jewel of Seven Stars." Yeah, it's an interesting window into the Victorian sort of Gothic genre, but from an Irishman's perspective.
James Joyce hated him.
Yeah, no, James,
because he was like a waspy Irish guy, where he was like
he's from Ulster, so yeah, but
yeah.
But it's
so I know a lot of his stuff through like James Joyce, like, you know, reading like secondary commentary on James Joyce and like being like, oh, this is like a part I wouldn't have recognized this as a parody of Bram Stoker, but he does a lot of he's like very antagonistic towards him.
And final literary thing. What would you say are Melville's best 3 works other than Moby Dick?
The Confidence Man, Clairol, and I either want to say Typee or Pierre, but it's hard to pick with him because everything he did is good.
Okay.
Like, you can't go wrong.
I'll add that to my list and get right on it and check back in.
Yeah, I think I actually might, when I do finish the Fairy Queen, I might just do like full Melville, all the Melville stuff at the beginning, go through, because I love Melville so much.
Yeah, no, and I
think he has so much underrated works that like, no one reads.
The Civil War poems, especially.
Those are great.
Shiloh,
everything he did
great. Honestly. All right, well, thanks for getting me onto that and everything else. I got to get to class now, but yeah, I'll check back in soon.
What do you mean? This is class. This is more. You learn more here than you're gonna at class.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
All right, peace. All right, Comrade Balloon. Oh, good name. You're up. Hey.
Your thoughts on flat Earth?
Oh man, I've talked about flat Earth a lot actually. What do you mean? What are my thoughts on it? Like, do I think it's real, or as a cultural phenomenon?
Both.
What do you mean? I don't think the world is flat. Although William Blake says that the world is flat in our imaginations, which I think is true. Which is why there's flat earthers in the first place, because Blake says in the eyes of the imagination, the world is an endless plane, right? It's an endless plane. So the problem with the flat earthers then is that they put borders, or they when they're really describing metaphorically, is that someone has put borders, the ice wall, around the endless plane of our imagination in this flat Earth. And so they're running into this problem all the time, where they're like, what are these things that are the fetters on our imagination? And it's like the scientific current model of the understanding of the cosmos, right? And that's where they come directly into contact with the thing that they feel is like enchaining the imagination. They're like, oh, the reason why we can't talk about the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch and things like this and all these other like imaginative literary things is because of this conspiracy, which is ultimately just the conspiracy of like NASA and the scientific establishment to hide the fact that they've fettered our infinite plane of imagination. Like, you know what I mean? And they're doing things outside of our plane of imagination. You know, that's like what it is. It's like kind of a myth in that way.
Gotcha. People typically do 5-year plans in socialist countries, but what's your 5 million year plan?
We're producing the New Jerusalem, and then we'll be free. We'll manifest our freedom through the entire galaxy.
And what does New Jerusalem look like?
It's a giant golden cube. It's a giant golden cube in Revelations. The New Jerusalem is just life, is just flourishing. It's goodness. It's the new Eden, you know. It's like, what do you like? What's good? What's good about life? All of those things will be there. What's bad about life? They're not there.
Gotcha. What gives you hope?
Everything. I don't know. I just have hope. I don't think if you need something to give you hope, then you don't have hope. Like, hope is not, like, you either have it or you don't. You know, it's like if you can lose hope, then what took it from you? You know, and then you gotta think, like, did you give it to that? Did you give up your hope, or did something really take it? So I think, I don't know. I'm just hopeful. I didn't used to be as hopeful as I was, But I don't know. I just try to look for the good in things, and that's really what gives me hope, I suppose, is or maybe perhaps my hope is what allows me to see the good in things. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Like when you have a baby,
Um,
you're kind of just like, I have hope. Like I got this little creature here. It's a miracle. Like, you know, it's like hard
yeah,
to not be hopeful.
I've worked with kids before, and they are hilarious. Um, but has your daughter spoken yet?
Like not outside of like Adamic babbling. Like she's learned like some vowel sounds already. But no words, discrete words, not
Huh.
yet.
Um, what are your thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons?
I'm not a big fan. I every time I played it like once, I think. Didn't really even get that far, and it's just kind of like it's like it's too like rule booky and too like oh roll for that to see if you're allowed to do that or whatever. Because it's supposed to be like this collaborative storytelling thing, but then if you want to like creatively engage with it, your means of doing so are actually strictly defined in so many ways, you know. So I just find it kind of boring. Like I'd rather just like sit around with my friends and be like, hey, what if we came up with an idea for a movie? You know, like that's kind of like what a Dungeons and Dragons campaign would be for me. Is like and you know what I mean? Like it's not really for me. It's not really for me. Not really my kind of thing. I don't really like role playing games and things like that. I don't know. People have fun with it, I guess. You know, I know people who like it a lot. It's just it comes out of a long tradition of like Roland Spiele, like role playing games, which comes out of like kind of like military, game theory, wargaming, etc. And it also has elements of like dramatic therapy in the sense of like role playing is like one of these like therapeutic techniques. And the original forms of Dungeons and Dragons were these like war games that people would play in military academies to like have their defined role and like you know you roll for blah 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 and like I don't know. It just seems like kind of tyrannical to me to force myself through a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's not wouldn't be fun for me. I don't know.
You know, I've played quite a lot, and I'd say the worst aspect of Dungeons and Dragons is rolling and the rules.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's like the whole thing. Like that's the IP. Like, you know.
yeah, yeah, it's and it depends highly on how like good your dungeon master is. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about how Chapo Trap House talks about like the demiurge?
I think that they're literally just like they read like Robert Anton Wilson and they're like these like naive like pseudo Gnostics where they are like they're constantly trying to engage with religious traditions and things like that, but they like ultimately hate Christianity more than any other religion, and so they're like totally fettered in their imaginations to this kind of like Gen X cosmos of like you know they read Philip K. Dick and they think they understand Philip K. Dick, but they haven't read the things Philip K. Dick has read because Philip K. Dick was like deeply invested in reading like ancient theology and mystical tracts and stuff, and I just don't feel like they're like that open to anything imaginative. They kind of are just reproducing this consensus view of the counterculture in like let's say the 90s. Like all the things that they're saying are like you can read in forum posts on Usenet. Like I don't know.
Gotcha.
Like the demiurge is
Um,
like, you know, people, everyone, like, do you know how many demiurge memes there are? Like, you know, like this is a
yeah,
huge part of the discourse. It's like not like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that serious. Like the demiurge is just the devil, like is just the god of this world, right? That's the figure of the demiurge is Lucifer.
yeah. Um, what do you think about individualism?
I think
And
it's bad because I don't think
and
anyone, like, I don't know what an individual is. Like, I think everyone's takes like for instance like what is an individual in isolation like do you know who you are unless you know like how other people see you and like how you're reflected to others like that's like an aspect of who you are. So I don't know, to like take a person in isolation and make theories around that like you're essentially describing an entity that doesn't exist because they're like you know Like you disclose yourself to yourself in a language that you didn't invent, right? Like you're using words that are produced by this whole tradition. You're bound up in everything else. So I don't know how you can like isolate yourself from the entirety of everything. That would be hell, right? Like the ultimate individualist would just be fucking Lucifer.
Hmm. What do you think about the term cringe?
You know, cringe is cringe, man. A cringe using cringe is also cringe. There's a kind of cringe on top of that. A lot of the times it's just used as like a social policing thing where it's like, oh, like you, like, you know, people will be like, will say that I'm doing something cringe or whatever, but it's like, I'm like, well, okay. Like, I guess that's you cringe. Like, it doesn't make me cringe. What makes me cringe is some stuff that some people, it makes them really happy. So I don't know. It's like, there is like a kind of diminutive nonsense to the whole like based versus cringe thing where it's kind of like you're just sorting everything into like 1 or 0, yes or no, red or blue, like, and it's just like a kind of algorithmic sort of thinking. It's not very creative. Right, to just say something's cringe isn't a very creative statement.
Yeah. I mean, I looked it up in the Bible and it kind of meant like to strike awe, like
Yeah.
well, it was like that one thing that's like I can't remember the quote. I'm a bad Christian, but it's something like, and they saw the Lord, and he was like, cringe in my wake or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you're cringing at yourself then, you know, like we were talking earlier about Wendigoon, the YouTuber, who does like I don't know, like paranormal sort of YouTube videos, but he was doing this series on Dante's Inferno, and he was cringing at himself after reading Purgatorio, and then like thinking back on things that he had said about the Inferno without having done it yet. So I think that will be the case, you know, when like I cringe at myself, like when I discover new things or whatever, like come to some type of understanding, I sort of cringe at my past self for like not knowing, you know. I don't think that's
Right.
necessarily bad, but you can also get over that and be like, you know, it's okay to be cringe sometimes. You can forgive yourself for some cringe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one final question. What are you calling your personal brigade after the U.S. collapses?
I don't know if I'll have one. Dad gang. It'll just be a bunch of. Most realistically, that's like what it would be like if the U.S. actually collapsed. It'd be like wherever I was, it would be like all of the people who have kids would immediately be like, okay, we all need to help each other out because we have kids, and it would just be dad gang. That's like how society even exists in the first place. You have like all the dads meeting up to fucking take care of business.
That's great. Personally, I would call mine Big Red 2.
Big
as
Red
a reference
2?
to Big Red 1, the 1st American Division. But, you know.
Yeah. There you go. I was thinking of the soda, the Texan soda that tastes like the color red.
Sorry, I do have one more question, if that's all right. I keep saying I'm going to leave. But what's like the most powerful like company or conglomerate right now? Like, is there any one that is decisively powerful?
The Department of Defense, I guess, which is the biggest company, corporation, corporate entity in the world.
Gotcha.
Right? Like,
well,
yeah, I think it's the Department of Defense.
And there's so much they lose too, or quote unquote lose.
Maybe the Chinese Communist Party up there, big corporation, employs a lot of people. That's kind of like the dialectic we see in the world right now, isn't it? That like the biggest corporations are these state corporations, these state entities in the first place. So, and you know, the Department of Defense can make all the other ones do whatever they want because they have a type of power that the other ones don't have.
Right. Do you think the internet is going to fragment more? Like there's going to be an Indian national internet, like there's a Chinese national internet?
I could see that happening. I think as more people, as more societies try to inundate themselves from like American soft power, that's effectively what they're going to have to do.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem, Comrade Balloon. I can probably do like one or two more people. My AirPods just died, so now I'm on the speakerphone. But it's a customer service hour. I think it's been customer service. How long have I been doing this? 2 hours, 3 hours? Who knows? When did I start? It's like 2 hours ago. So it's customer service 2 hours. Look at me doing 2 hours of customer service. Wow, that's more than I worked in most of my office jobs. All right, we got Mercury and Wadi Al something.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm just saying.
What's up?
I'm just saying hi. I don't know if you want to get. I don't have much to talk about. I don't know if you want to stay on geopolitics. In particular, I don't know if you've been paying attention to like China's relationship with Latin America. And
I
their
mean
sort of pivot to China.
Yeah, I mean I have been paying attention to that, but it makes sense. Like they're putting a ton of money down there, and they don't give it with as many strings attached. And they're not trying to take over their countries. So obviously, like a lot of these Latin American countries, they have much more to gain from China than they have from us. As Michael Hudson says, right? Like, what do we offer? We say, well, we can not bomb you.
Right. Yeah, I lost the story, and so I'm going to get the details wrong. But their financial system, they're like 6 Latin American countries have either starting to use the renminbi, or are willing to work with China's financial system instead of the Anglo-American one.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a China hawk. I'm more, I think China is a materialist civilization that really, like you say so well, that they just want to produce goods for their people. And and it's really simple and concrete.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Somehow this missed my radar, and like that is from the perspective of someone who's adversarial to that would be the biggest quote unquote threat.
Yeah, I believe there's been people saying like, whatever, like what's the doctrine, Monroe Doctrine, like whatever the one where it's like we claim our sphere of influence over the Americas. So Monroe Doctrine, am I wrong? I always forget these things.
Buckley and Chomsky argue about this. And they're not to even branch off another one, but I think that might be,
But I saw like some senators or like people on like the defense committees or whatever being like the Chinese, like they're overstepping the Monroe Doctrine or whatever, and then like there's people who are like, oh,
yeah. Well, that's because it's geopolitics, right? And so that's where when it's your job to worry about China, and you're not just acting as a citizen trying to change the direction of that's in our geopolitical sphere. And if like I'm at the State Department or something, I'm
you're going to be pissed about that. Yeah, because they're going to fucking write you up.
If I'm Donald
you're
Trump,
not doing a good enough
let's
job.
say. I'm sending. I get my best negotiators. They all speak Spanish. Everyone knows the Mexicans love me. Like that is what I'm focused on with respect to China.
Well, the thing is that I think what Trump would do, like Trump in the same way is kind of materialist in the sense he's just trying to do things like that. So I think that it ultimately just mean like that he's like, whoa, we need a little cut of this. Like he's acting basically like we're another one of these like he called this America a third world country and a banana republic. So maybe we need just as much help from the Chinese as the Latin Americans do.
Yeah. Well, like when you answer that question about what the biggest companies are, in a certain aspect, like this is what the ANCAPs didn't realize, we're already ANCAPs, and because they always followed their dialectic to like, okay, well, what about like if you get really deep with these guys like Betke at George Mason University or something, they end up talking about public goods and how like lakes need to be regulated and the usage in the market doesn't solve it, and they go, okay, it's about institutions, and I'm like, great, you guys just found governments. You're back
you just discovered
with the Greeks and the
Romans.
And
they try so hard to avoid just like reckoning with like the historical, like the fact that like the things that have been produced in history of like rationality and reason that is beyond their like articulation. And so they end up just like getting to the point where they start to articulate the necessity of states and things like this.
Absolutely. They're like, what do you mean Robinson Crusoe has to go get fish from the lake? I think their lack of empiricism. And well, so even if you don't like quantitative empiricism, their lack of historical, like viewing
historical materialism,
yes, Rothbard addressed that a little. He wrote a little history, but really they false into this like Ricardian. I put it on Marxism too, and we could talk about that if you want. But they have like this deductive Ricardian vice.
Well, it's all Minecraft. You know, you can append everything to being like, okay, so we're beginning to talk about Minecraft,
Yes.
and then they just talk about Minecraft.
Absolutely, yeah. But yes, but they don't have like in their Minecraft. So in the neoliberal quote unquote or neoclassical synthesis or whatever, their Minecraft is all numbers.
Yeah,
and so a soft critique I would put at like a Marxist world historical kind of perspective is their data is all words, but the Austrians just reject any real world phenomenon if it contradicts them, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the geopolitical strategy too, right? They actively try to destroy anything that contradicts them. That's why you need the Austrians to have, the Chicago boys going down to put Pinochet
in. But yeah, anyway, we're already ANCAPs. You can go home now.
We are pirates, as Logan Roy said in the episode last night. We're pirates.
Yeah. I gotta watch.
Slit some throats.
I gotta watch. John Wick's all over the place now, and I gotta.
Yeah, apparently it's all on the vibe right now. The vibes are back artistically.
I do feel that. I'm getting a lot more optimistic.
Yeah, me too. I think things are going to get better. Well, they're going to get worse here, but they're going to get better overall.
Dude, in the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone's stuck at home, like I thought that end with when I first saw Compot and stuff, I thought that moment was there then. Where it's like people are going to get stuck at home, they're going to have to like reevaluate everything. They're going to like this is like a big opportunity.
You have to remember that the people and at large are on a time gap of like maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. But that's what I thought was special about COVID was like, no, this will force a reckoning, right? Like it should grab them.
I mean, it's going to. The thing is that reckoning will be like 5 to 10 years.
Totally. Yep. But yeah, I do feel like I think I got ahead of myself in the beginning. Or I thought people
getting impatient.
Yeah,
me too.
I'm a Yankee after all.
Yeah, same. Patience is the thing I've been working the most on.
Yeah, likewise. Maybe Tantra. Who knows if that other guy was right. But I do feel people are really engaging with like good media now, and they're like seeing through the algorithm and like the cotton candy and stuff.
Well, actually, there's have you seen the SOC 119 videos? Like this sociology professor doing like basically like doing kind of like a kind of like Maoist struggle session over the concepts of like white privilege and stuff like that. Have you seen these?
SOC 119? I have not.
Yeah, so this guy he's actually hired by NATO to do conflict resolution too.
Wow.
Like to govern. So I think that the YouTube algorithm starting to push this a lot is in some ways that at the higher levels of the state they're already seeing like the problem with like that wokeness quote unquote is kind of an existential threat to the functioning of American diplomacy and institutional diplomacy. So I feel like they're like looking for people like this guy to do like conflict resolution to like get past this moment already.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. Like you're speaking internationally in particular, right? Because that one of the reasons I'm optimistic is it seems like particularly because the Zoomers we're past peak wokeness. Actually, let me tie this into something. Like I think the Zoomers, whether they're like morally ideological or not, they just see like millennial woke lifestyle branding as cringe a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just getting weeded out. They didn't lose an argument or anything. They just don't want to be like those people.
It's just not inspiring. Like it doesn't spark joy, as that lady said.
It's critical, man. There is truth to that fixation. It's like a purely negative exercise in a lot of ways. There's like as its practice as a lifestyle brand, at least.
Yeah.
There's like literature you can read, but it's kind of few and far between as like the brand wokeness, quote unquote. But like, so when you're talking about it being like the thing that's optimistic about it for me is no, what it is now is it's like corporate decorum. And it's like the PG-13 corporate decorum, and it's enforced in corporations and governments and stuff. Yeah. Everyone knows it's like, no, this is our professional persona. Don't bring up controversial topics. Don't be unnecessarily mean. people are sensitive around certain things. Just stay professional. I see us as kind of past the peak where it's been like absorbed institutionally. But
yeah, that's why I was saying like I'm pro wokeness now. Like I want like full brutal wokeness imposed on people because it just won't last because people hate it so much.
Yes, I do see that. Do you have a prefix for your accelerationism? Because these are abound now. I do like the perspective that Marxism is kind of like an accelerationist, like a proto.
Well, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I definitely be sympathetic to that. The Bolsheviks were accelerating something.
Well, that's what Lenin said. It was the electrification of the Soviet. Like that's like what's like his main platform was like we need to go fast and we need electricity.
Yeah, they took a lot of risk, man. Absolutely.
Well, I want to like sometimes like take some of like the corporate speak and be like, oh, the Soviet Union was a startup nation, things like that.
Absolutely. Or it's like, or they're cowboys. They're robbing train cars to fund their elections, and the Mensheviks are going like, you can't do that. And Lenin's like, fucking did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like I always appreciate, like character in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the way you appreciate Steve Jobs, that's like how I feel about Stalin.
Well, he was a Trotskyist, so he was.
I know, but in his own life, he was more of a Stalinist.
Well, see, here's what I say about the Bolsheviks broadly, and we can talk about Stalin. They believed, man, they were sincere in their conviction, and that is a sympathetic. And wanting the good for all too, I think, by any means necessary, and that's where we'll start to push back. Because it's paradise.
Real goods, side, not being obsessed with moral goods, but real goods.
Yes. And so the heart of the critique is that they were dogmatic. I would say they should have maybe, but it was an interesting time, right? They were caught up in this world historical moment.
The dogmatism is like really what crushed them too, which is why you have the Sino-Soviet split, even, right? Because it's like the Chinese communists are way like Mao was a pragmatist. Mao is far more pragmatic.
Yeah, this is why you like Stalin. So we're back. So Trotsky's dogmatic and ideological.
Yeah. Trotsky's a priest.
Absolutely.
Stalin was a monk.
Yes, but
like a warrior monk.
Yeah, like but the Man of Steel, who used to be a poet, he became alone in a communist society, I think, because his operational security was so extreme that he didn't trust anyone.
He became He became the Tsar. Like he was actually in the same spot as the Tsar was in the end. Where he's like dealing with all these conspiracies against his power, and he ended up exactly in the same spot as the Tsars.
It's him. Yeah, but that's quite tragic, man.
He's definitely a world historical like tragic figure. Like they always try to make like Stalin, like there's the Death of Stalin movie, and they make it into a farce. But a real Stalin like film that would like get to the heart of it, he'd be more like Logan Roy, like in Succession, like portrayed as like this like tragic figure who's ultimately like a very serious person who's surrounded by like schemers who like don't actually have like as good, like they don't actually care.
I think he really cared about the Soviet Union, and in particular, which doesn't get noted a lot, his rise in the Soviet Union was facilitated by, like, he was very concerned about making it, quote unquote, not cosmopolitan is not the right word, but
multinational, the civilizational state.
Yes. Sorry, I lost my place before what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's like a type of proletarian cosmopolitanism, which isn't the same as like a kind of where it's like we got our worker, it's like Trumpian cosmopolitanism. It's like I've got the best Mexicans. I love these guys. Where it's like,
well, because he was Georgian, not so like the idea that it was like some kind of Russian ethnic chauvinism gets nipped right in the bud with Stalin at the helm. But you said he well, so the Bolsheviks, the Russian, I don't want to generalize, obviously, but like since the Okhrana, all the Russian, like there's been a high degree of espionage and covert praxis, right, in Russian history, and I think they were all a little paranoid, and they all had a little. So Stalin used to feed his subordinates vodka while he drank water, and watch. He'd do stuff like that. Because he didn't trust anyone, and he stopped writing poetry before. I like the low hanging fruit is the deaths and stuff like that, and I don't want to get into like
but
like in hard times of war and all that. And to be honest, most of that seems to be Stalin making the least bad choice to preserve the Soviet Union, such as the Holodomor people bring up.
Well, I mean, you got to read your Grover Fur, my friend.
Now, you know what I think about this, dude.
I know, but have you read Grover Fur?
No, but I want to read Dante before that.
Okay, you still haven't read Dante? I've been telling you to read Dante for years.
I read De Vulgari Eloquentia. That's
a good
Dante
one.
book. Yeah.
You should read Grover Fur on Stalin because he actually has a better way of looking at it because he's a medievalist. So he's basically just looking at it as if it's like you got this like there are conspiracies like against the monarchy. You know what I mean?
That's why
it's real.
But that's why they're so paranoid. Like fighting. So the Bolsheviks against the Okhrana, right? Against the secret service of the Tsarists of the Romanovs, right? And then the Bolsheviks take over, and like their intelligence. Again, I might push back on you a bit here, but they give their intelligence agencies way more leeway over the entire direction of the state than I would say we do, and they're sort of a nation. Spies run that place, you know.
Well, Putin,
or they did, literally, now, even now, absolutely.
The thing is that we have these competing intelligence. We don't have like a single intelligence agency. So you have in America the anarchy of everything all the time because it's like you got DNI, you got CIA, you got FBI, you got DEA, you got NSA, you got all of the individual like naval intelligence. And like they all have their own incentives and they're all competing with each other. And so that's like also why our intel that's why so much shit happens, like where it's like kind of farcical because you just have these overlapping, like, oh, the FBI didn't tell the CIA that they were putting fucking assets into this group, et cetera, and it's just like a fucking mess.
Yeah, you don't like Well, I could go. Well, so that's why they say the CIA exists, right? Because Pearl Harbor happened and they had all the information in a bunch of different places. That's their story. I don't think you give them that. But I don't know. I like Montesquieu more than you, so I see the idea of a separation of powers more, especially with the extra legal apparatus that espionage and covert action and all that take. And however, but we're not going to solve the Neo-Cold War in a conversation. No, we're not. No, we're not.
No, we're not. It's also just like these things are historical inevitabilities now, and it's like we're gonna see what happens with it. But the thing is that I think like what they're actually realizing more and more is that from like a mission critical whatever the fuck like pure geopolitics, real politics, strategic thinking, that this competitive like this separation of powers amongst the intelligence branches is actually makes it much harder for them to do their job, whereas like the Chinese intelligence branches have been much more competent, and that's why you have all of this fear of like Chinese or influence and things like this, is because like even the people at the top kind of know that our system's like too incompetently run to really outcompete on that level.
So like maybe I'll try too ambitiously to tie a few things together here, but like in terms of like from a Marxist-Leninist perspective, like one thing I've kind of think of it as is like China's too materialist and Russia's too idealist if you're going to be critical of the East.
Sure.
And like so the confrontations with Russia are about these ideological principles and these interpretations of history, and their focus seems to be on that information war and that war of ideas, and China seems to be more, the economic war.
Yeah, it's purely economic. Yeah,
and so when their efforts at centralization plus their scale, they're just a massive country. Civilization, space and time, absolutely
huge.
Like I manage, like I'm like a sysadmin computer guy, and like so sometimes the pager goes off, and it creates paranoia about the stability of systems, and that's like a dumb little computer service. If there's over 1 billion people, in this vast geographic stretch of territory, and my job was to make sure everything didn't just fall apart every day. I see their thinking and their focus on long-term order and stability. and the necessity of centralization. Like in tech, sorry, I'm rambling, but in tech, like there are all these like decentralized versus centralized debates, like these dogmatic debates. But the reality is, even in like the concrete engineering cases, before you take the metaphor too seriously, is like you never have a fully decentralized system because it can't coordinate at all, and it has cascading failures, and that like dogmatic libertarianism that runs in American culture more than China, like that's where it misses the mark a lot. Where I read the Financial Times and they make the same like Milton Friedman talking points about China, which had their merit in 1980.
Yeah,
but it's like you haven't kept thinking about this problem. You don't see how they just don't see it the way you do, and you're not trying to do that.
Yeah, it's because they have a different pedagogy, right? Like the thing is that what'd be so alien to the Financial Times reporters is to read like the actual like Chinese economists these days, like because like they've like for instance like our whole economic establishment is basically like outcasted someone like Michael Hudson who's doing like actual really important like world historical economics research and work, and the Chinese take him. So it's like that's how it is.
Well, it's like the West takes numbers too seriously and the East takes words a little too seriously, and like I want some synthesis of it, as data.
It's funny because it's the exact opposite now. Like this is like McLuhan was kind of saying is like the dawn of like the 20th century is that you have like Westerners taking on these like Eastern kind of obsessions, like historically, whereas the East is like now like the kind of vanguard of like Western concerns.
Yeah, it's like mutual envy or competition. Yes, you see this with again to the Cowboys with the Russians and stuff. Yeah.
And like we have like our enlightened Brahmins who are like this is just the wheel of Dharma and there are too many born.
Yeah, absolutely. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. What were we saying before the mutual competition? There was something there was like a loose end I had there, but it's not that important.
It was like decentralization, centralization, kind of like the farce of decentralization.
The methods. So like the empirical methods, historical and quantitative. So that's why to go back to American school, more like, well, I don't know if he would say this, but it's on my timeline pretty far up right now. There's an economist named Thomas Sargent who definitely commits all the neoliberal sins of like formalization and wanting a mathematical model, but he's also very curious about history, and all of his accounts blend those methods together. And like just like you said about like a new cosmopolitanism, a real cosmopolitanism, I think Haas talks about the neoliberal global rules-based blah 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 as like a sort of empty universalism where we all pretend to be the same without knowing anything about each other. And a true cosmopolitanism doesn't go for this empty universalism. It tries to fill in the particulars from all experiences with all methods. And so across with all the woke questions about what demographic category you're in, but also the methods, like if you're going to interrogate a question, use every method, the sciences and the humanities, the shape rotators and the world cells, get all your best people on it. I really like Sargent for that. Because you can ignore all the math if you don't want to see it, or you can ignore all the history if you don't want to see it, and he still makes
the thing is just like no matter what, even if you have this math, like you're presuming that it exists in this kind of narrative continuity where any of these things have meaning in the first place, right? To assume there is meaning in a thing is to tell a story. So like you're gonna so no matter what, even these people who are like, oh, I'm just all about quantification and data, they're also deeply devoted to a world historical narrative
that they don't even realize when they're tracing citations and academia and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. They don't realize that these are just ideas in people's heads that they're tracing.
Exactly.
And they think they're outside of space and time. Well, that again, to go back to American, like Richard Rorty just dumps, and you were talking about Wittgenstein.
Yeah,
like,
Rorty rocks on that. Yeah.
Analytic philosophy has been totally deconstructed multiple times now.
But guess what? All of these fucking nerds like that don't know that. Like they're getting psyoped by like dead ideas. You know?
It's facts and law. Kantbot used to have the critique of pure logic thing.
Yeah,
it's that, right? It's like a pop facts and logic that appeals to like
It's like the you know that cartoon version of like Popper's argument where it's like the cartoon like explainer of like Karl Popper, like it's like that.
Maybe, but yeah, it's like
Neil deGrasse Tyson as opposed to like Carl Sagan or something.
Yeah, or I could say some other. I don't want to offend anyone. It's made more contemporary, but like a lot of the debate sphere, let's say, falls prey to this.
Yeah,
where an argument has these premises that everyone agree, and it's just this logical deduction down like the first branch, and whoever wins that wins, and whoever isn't is pivoting or something. Like whoever wants to introduce another thread or like question a premise or make a broader.
Yeah, well, then well, it's basically like the whole even that is just a dramatic performance of what a debate would be like, but it's all just actually ad hominem because it's a spectacle on the YouTube machine. So really, it's just like who can perform seeming like this appearance of having this type of debate, but it's not a serious debate. It's not like they're being serious about it ever. It's never serious because the context is always like, and this is all a TV show that we're performing on the YouTube.
Yeah, and we're verse each other and stuff, and some of that's self-aware. I guess that what's funny is like you go back to Chomsky and Buckley, is like Firing Line was great if you go back and look at where people just talk to each other for an hour.
That's Joe Rogan now, kind of.
Yeah, but he's poppy.
Yeah, he's more poppy. Like we don't have that level of like it's because that was a time period when people still read books and read newspapers and so then like that dramatic performance had to be more considered. Whereas now like what people want is to have more digestible, more memes, more instantaneous grasp of things. So in a debate, if you go like, I can lift more than you, I'm stronger than you, I'd beat you up or whatever, then that's more instantaneously gratifying. Or, that's why ad hominems are so important in this day and age, is because like, it's literally just like, which guru will you follow based on aesthetics, so based off of appearances is like the main question.
Yes. Like the rhetorical dialectic rules of engagement as opposed to like an academic or scholarly dialectic rule of engagement. Yeah. Anyway, I could ramble forever.
All right. Well, I'll see if there's I'll let you go. I'll see if there's anyone else who wants to come on, but it's always nice talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Peace. All right. Anyone any customers in line here? Or maybe I'll take my break. Go take a smoke break. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'm done. I don't know. Julian, why don't you come on? Julian. My friend Julian, my friend who translates Kajev stuff from French for me, so I don't have to learn French, which is a world historical service to us English speakers, letting us not learn French. That's such a blessing. I don't want to learn French. You really think I want to learn French? Hell no. You can translate that shit for me, my friend, my Quebecois friend. That's what you're here to do. Because I'm not ever going to learn French. God damn it. It's never going to happen. Oh, man. I don't know. Someone come on. Otherwise, I'm just going to wrap it up. My baby here is getting fussy for a bit, but now she's really stone cold asleep on me and I can't move. So if I move, she's going to wake up. So I'm stuck here for a little bit longer. Someone let me know if there's something I can do for him. I can't even reach. I was going to say, like, if it was quiet, I would just reach to my copy of Leaves of Grass there and just start reading stuff, but it's too far away. I can't reach it. I can't reach for my guitar either. I got a baby on me. Whew. Oh no. Did I get you on before? Or like you couldn't get in, but you're up? What's up? Hey, what's up?
Right? Yeah. So what do you really buy the accelerationism kind of stuff going into the singularity,
I don't believe in the singularity and that sort of shit. I think Nick Land is just a fucking like he's like a cyber goth like hangover. Like he was last relevant when he was like on speed and going clubbing to jungle music and the Matrix was coming out. That was his moment.
Wait, tell me
and
more
he's
about
overstayed. That's what the CCRE is all about, man. Like that's like the whole thing. I don't know. Like that was it, like that was the moment that he wrote most of his work in.
Oh. I just like have read a few snippets. I remember him talking about body without organs. That is kind of moving, like thinking of body without organs as culminating point for singularity, if I got him correctly.
Yeah, see, when like this whole thing where you're saying like the body without organisms is a culminating point for the singularity, like to me this summons the image of just someone jacking off. Like it's just completely meaningless to me. It says nothing to me.
Okay.
I don't see any depth in it whatsoever. Like to me it's just like a show of like it's like a kind of poetic show of like this type of enthusiasm that occurred with like the development of the internet, where people just kind of had these like like it's kind of like flarf poetry or something.
But it's just a metaphor for like how would I put it?
See, it's going to be a metaphor for something that's ultimately really banal and kind of a truism, and that's why you need to use like these like terms to like dress up something that's actually like not that interesting or deep. But like if you use all these words around it, then you can make it seem more revelatory than it actually is. So it's like, yeah, please explain to me like what like in layman's terms.
Okay,
like
okay,
what you meant by the body without organs, singularity,
I
etc.
actually
Like what does that actually
it's been a while that I read it. I just recalled it because the main key point I was getting at was why like okay.
Like imagine you're at a gas station and you're trying to explain this to me.
So yeah, let's try. So he's talking about different competing ideas in a way, and a hive mind is what he wants to come at. Like that's what I understand by singularity, and the hive mind itself would be in real terms a body without organs, where different factions are thinking independently, but they are thinking for the same goal. Is that what he implies? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I assumed it to be.
Okay, so like a corporation.
Yeah, could like in a way. So that's that corporation, everyone's not like there's no specialization as such where people don't really know what they're trying to do. That's just they understand the final culminating aspect.
So it's like a corporation where everyone in the corporation is devoted to the company's core values and mission goals, and they get updates on this on their Slack, and they have weekly stand-ups to make sure that everyone is on board with mission goals and things like that. Yeah.
You kind of
what are our values as a company? Like when you can answer questions like that.
I kind of lost you there. Can you repeat that?
Like when you work for a company and they're like, what are our values as a company? And then you have to like recite them.
Come on, that's cringe. I know what, like, that's not what I meant. What I meant was harmony or unity,
Harmony and unity.
Uh-huh.
I think there's unity in multiplicity. Like I think in paradoxes, that's how I tend to go.
Makes
so
sense.
I think that real harmony is when it's like everyone has a body with their own organs and their own bodies too, and
of course,
where we don't all have to be on the exact same page, I guess, because I don't think you can have everyone on the same page. I think that's kind of a psychosis, Like I don't like when like I always hated like working in a company, right, or something like that, where it'd be like, oh, okay, like we're all on the same team here, and we're all on the mission, and blah blah blah. I'm like, no, I'm just here to make money. Like I'm just here because I have to pay my bills, and I don't have a mission beyond that. My mission is something beyond the company. You know what I mean?
But like just being contrarian, like any like I think even a communist ideal is about working and then getting your life. I am lacking words right now, but I hope you get what
think
I
about
mean.
this. Do you know what the Chinese Communist Party says? The Chinese Communist says, "Start your business. We're behind you."
Yeah. That's nice.
That's real unity and multiplicity, where they posit that there's actually not a conflict between your individual self-interest and the self-interest of all. So they say to be rich is glorious. To get rich under communism is glorious, right? Because your wealth isn't coming as like a zero-sum game as an expense from someone else. So it's like everyone's success in a communist society is everyone's success. Everyone's individual success can be universally celebrated by everyone. That's what communism is.
I wouldn't of course, argue against that. Like, it kind of aligns with what I think is good, of course.
Yeah.
So, kind of pivoting, but still in the same track. Do you see humans, like the human subject, enhancing? And if you do, in what sense, if it does?
What do you mean by enhancing the human subject?
I mean, we are kind of limited by our psychosis. That's what you used, I believe, and we kind of lose track of what really is important. Forgetting what's because of.
Oh yeah, I think people are like, very much like, especially in the West, everyone's growing more and more disenchanted with the sort of reigning ideology, and we're going to like re-embrace more meaningful things as we see the poverty of this current form.
So would that mean any radical changes in our physical beings, or not? You know what I'm getting
at?
I
know. If you're talking about like Neuralink stuff like that,
maybe.
I don't think so. No, I think that stuff is pure cope. And everyone who volunteers to have a Neuralink chip put into their fucking heads deserves like what's going to happen to them once they do. But
I think of it in this way. I think of it in this way. You know how there are these myths of ghosts like possessing human minds and stuff? People don't really have a control over that, And if these myths are what they say to be, wouldn't a particular control of your own bodies and ideas would be something?
I think we already have that, though. I mean, don't you have control over your own thoughts and ideas?
Of course I do. But still, I read a particular mutual of not really a mutual. I follow the guy. He said something like cordyceps from ether controlling our bodies, which we don't really know. Those fungal parasitic ideologies. And if we could read them out.
Yeah. I mean, like there's, you can see how you're like, I think, everyone's constantly running into ways, or maybe they don't. I mean, a lot of people's suffering comes from their inability to see like the ways in which they're conditioned to think in certain ways or whatever, right? Like that's the problem with abuse in general, is that people come to normalize it to themselves and things like that, and then they make justifications for it, etc. But it's like yeah, I don't know. I think that truth wins. Truth is proliferating, and there'll only be more truth. So I think that a lot of that, like, I think everything's for the best. So whatever happens, it's like we're going to learn things either the easy way or the hard way, and we'll probably learn them the hard way. But it'll be good that we learn them.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I would.
That's been true for my own life. Anyway, I've learned a lot of things the hard way, but I'm glad I learned them.
Yeah. I'm still kind of starting out, so let's see.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's in a different spot on the journey or whatever, but there's a lot of good guideposts. The way is narrow if you find it, but you can find it if you look.
Personally, I kind of want to, as cringe as it sounds.
You kind of what?
I kind of want to go into the corporate route shit, like as one family bullshit.
Oh, that's fine.
It's because
that's fine. Because just don't let it destroy you. Don't let it. Don't lose your humanity.
Of course.
That happens to a lot of people. I've seen it. Where like they become real like company men, and then then later down in the line they realize that they lost themselves somewhere, and even though they may have made a deal and made a lot of money from it or something like that, they end up more miserable than someone who didn't make that deal.
But I kind of want to exercise, there are these technologies out there. You would want to work with them, and the only way to actually be in any meaningful position is via these.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's tough. I'm just saying, like, I'm more of like, not that these opportunities are open to me or anything, but I would be wary. I'd be on guard.
Yeah.
If you were going to such a thing, because you're gonna run into stuff. It's gonna be hard, and they're gonna be asking stuff of you, and you might have to make sacrifices, and you might not want to make them, and maybe you shouldn't sometimes.
Yeah. Like these colleagues of mine from my previous work used to say, don't listen to them. They don't want you to marry. They want you to be a bachelor all your life, because that's what's good for them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true. They will try to take as much value from you as they can. So you have to advocate for yourself.
Anyway, it was nice chatting you. I think I'll push.
Yeah, nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
God bless, man.
God bless. Bye-bye.
All right.
I'm doing literally one more. So there's a last shot. Raise your hand or request to join, and I'll take one more. Oh, in the meantime, though, I'll go through the comments on this. Any new comments? Type the name of that biblical lecturer. That's Northrop Frye. Northrop Frye, NORTHROPFRYE. Northrop Frye. Very important. Oh man. Well, cool. We'll round it off with my Juggalo friend. Did you listen to the new Violent J album? That's what I want to know. I want to know if I should listen to it. Is the new Violent J album good?
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
How you doing, Logo?
I'm good, man. How are you? I'm asking you though. Is the new Violent J album good? Did you listen to it? I haven't listened to it
It's
yet.
depressing. It's depressing. It's just that you can tell when he's singing every song, there's something really wrong with him. There's something fucked up. He's gone through a lot, bro. It's. I feel bad because it probably was going to be a really good one, but like you can hear anguish in everything he's saying, and he doesn't feel like he has the energy. Like it's a weird, like very negative energy. Like he's just black pilled right now. So.
Oh man,
it's understandable.
Yeah, because he has some like health problems or something, right? Like
no. His latest girlfriend actually overdosed on October 31st of last year.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah. So he was doing a project with Ouija Mac around that time, and then he came back, and then that happened. So he was out of the scene for a little bit. Came back. He's doing okay, but it's just sad. It sucks.
That sucks.
But, yeah. But it seems positive still, so it's all good. It's all good. But I want to say congratulations to you. Holy, it's crazy to imagine you with a child. It's so cool. It's so cool.
It's great.
Yeah, it's very inspirational. So,
Dad gang, man. Dad gang will prosper.
Dad gang for life, bro. Yeah. I just had a quick question for you in regards to. Well, actually, first I want to say real quick, your little trauma posting, thank you so much for doing that because it helped connect a lot of things that I was thinking about, even for myself. So I think a lot of people in America or just people around the country have dealt with narcissists or any of that form regarding Gen Xers. That was very, like, even though it was very hard for you, and I'm sorry for everything that's happened to you, but like it helped so much for me to like position myself to look more into my own habits. And it's like, telling, it's insane because it's like I was always reaching out for stuff that they could never provide for me because they were always providing something for themselves, right? So I was my own self-narration.
Tough to come to that. No, for real. Like it's kind of hard because it's like also it's like you want to think the best. Like I to quote Lil Ugly Mane, I always try to see my people better than they are, and sometimes the hardest thing to do is to recognize that like people who are really close to you, like that you give the benefit of the doubt to a lot, that like they might, they at a certain point, like something has to give at a certain point, like you're going to have to like get to, like acknowledge like the reality of the thing instead of just like constantly wishing things would just be better. Sometimes it's just, you can't like you need two people on that. Like you need people who are willing to see the problems that are there. If they can't see it and you do, then it's going to be an irreconcilable conflict, and it's like you sometimes like avoid having that conflict because you don't want to like lose the hope that things could be better than they are. But so I think that I don't know. I'm keeping my shit open. Like I'm hoping that somehow because like things will improve, but I'm also like not placing my bets on that the way that I was before.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's a hard thing to like, and that's the thing once you kind of accept that like they are what they are right now, and it's not your position or job to do anything about because it's on their own terms. It's like they have to. You can only point in directions and say, "Hey, this is what happened." Blah blah blah. Leave it at that and say, "Hey, cool, I love you still, but this is how far I can keep this position in my relationship with you."
Yeah.
And I love my parents, and they gave me for what I could have a great life for the most part as a kid, but they left out very vital things for me growing. So it's like I let go.
That's the hard thing
let
too,
go of it.
where it's like if it's not like it's like people can look at like abuse and it's like oh, were you like physically abused all the time, or it's like oh, like did they starve you didn't have food or things, but it's like in some ways like
like there are people who like have very like giving or like honest or like selfless parents who like grew up in poverty and like they're honest about this with their kids and like they have like a real relationship. And then there's like also like where they're like quote unquote protecting you from these things, but it's really like a means of control where it's like how dare you suggest I'm doing anything bad to you? I feed you. And then it becomes like it's like then it's like this whole
Right.
guilt complex that you're just supposed to accept and be thankful for everything, even if you like don't feel it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly what my parents do. I fed you, I clothed you, I gave you everything. That's not what I needed, though.
Yeah,
That's not what I
yeah,
needed,
exactly.
bro.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's like, and like it's so cynical though, like and it's like, okay, well, it's like I guess
It's a
is that all
cycle.
that's
Yep.
important? Because like all of those things are just money. All of those things are just money.
Empty.
Where it's like, okay, yeah, like you gave money is money is money. It all comes down to like money, and like, and it's like there's more important things than money. But it's like to a lot of people there isn't. Like I don't know. Like there's like a whole. I mean, I think probably one of the reasons why I've done a whole fucking deep political analysis, geopolitical analysis, the political economy on like money and like where does money come from. Like all of this is probably because of like how money obsessed like that part of my family is. And I've actually learned so much more about that, like regarding like intergenerational stuff by talking to some of my extended family about some of this stuff. And like I haven't really talked to them about this sort of stuff, but I am now. And it's like they're telling me a bunch of stuff I didn't know, and it's like, oh my God. So it's like it's been good ultimately because I've learned a lot more of like the realities of things. So
Right. Well, it's funny because now I can tie this back to the ever since I followed you. It's like it's crazy because you're younger than me, but I at the time when I was going through my psychosis in a way, like my breaking of the conditioning, I treated you like almost like basically a father figure in a way. And I'm like I've told it's weird, but like you were my guide in a way, like the whole time, and you barely know me, and it's like you guided me in your words and what you posted guided me through so many things to get me to the point where I am, and I'm free in a way. Like I'm still like dealing with stuff, but I'm more free than I ever have been because I've let go
yeah.
and just figured out stuff on my own. And eventually it's like just, that Holy Spirit just comes on you and you're just like, boom, there, it's right in your face. It's all here. It's apparent. It's real. It's happening.
Yeah. Well, I love to hear that, man, because I have some like dark nights of the soul myself where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Is any of this is point like what am I really doing? And then I'll be like, well, I'm doing this for myself, like, right? I can at least know that like I'm doing this to help myself. And it has helped me, like to just talk about like why do I write all the time? Is because like it's how I help myself. It's like a coping mechanism or whatever. Like I had to always articulate myself and my thoughts to myself in order to like process them, I guess. And it's good to know, it's reassuring that that me helping myself in that way also can help other people to help themselves.
Right. A self-narrator helping another self-narrator, because that's all I did was talk to myself because that's all I could rely on in a way, is that because no one was giving me good enough answers. I was like, nope, that's wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Boom, boom, talk to myself in my head, blah, 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 blah. Like just imagining and doing all these theoretical blah, 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 blah. It's like, holy hell. I was in hell all the time.
Yeah.
Crazy,
No, I've
bro.
been there, dude. I know what that's like.
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
what
See,
that's like,
it's
man.
funny.
When it's
It's
just
like,
you
so
in your own head
my
having
yep. A blast, having a good time in hell. It's great.
Yeah.
No, but it's crazy to know that, like, yeah, it's a lot of people, and I've now kind of been reaching out to others, trying to help them with them. Not in the sense like, oh, trying to be that figure for them, but it's like when I see that they're kind of asking for something in a subtle way, it's like I kind of now can help them subtly and slowly over time, and like give them a way to guide. It's like, dude, the way is narrow. I swear, it's so crazy, but if you walk
it's so narrow.
bro. It's so very thin. But yeah, I just want to say thanks, bro. I'll leave it at that. I appreciate it.
Well, I think this is a positive note to end on, man. I always appreciate having you on, man. Whoop whoop.
Yeah. Whoop whoop, my friend. Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later, bro.
Peace.
All right, peace.